Welcome to the Bakersfield City Council meeting. This television broadcast is brought to you by the local cable companies, the County of Kern, and the City of Bakersfield. You can watch the rebroadcast of this meeting Saturday at 7 p.m., Sunday at 10 a.m., and the following Wednesday at 7 p.m. You can download the agenda for this meeting at www.bakersfieldcity.us. Presiding over this evening's meeting, the Honorable Karen Go.
It's my pleasure to call to order the 5:15 City Council meeting of July 19th, 2017. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Go.
Here.
Vice Mayor Smith. Councilmember Rivera.
Here.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Here.
Councilmember Weir.
Here.
Councilmember Freeman.
Here.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Here.
Councilmember Parlier.
Here.
Again, welcome. Thank you so much for your willingness to be here and to help accommodate the overflow crowd. We're just glad to have you here participating in the process. At this time, we're going to ask you to stand for the invocation to be offered by Pastor Vernon Kemp from Greater Harvest Christian Center. And then please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance by Marisa Edmondson, a freshman at the University of Arizona who served on the Ward 2 City of Bakersfield Youth Commission. Thank you so much for your service. Pastor?
Let us bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we acknowledge your presence in this council meeting. For you are the creator and the sustainer of all things, Lord, and we reverence you. We thank you for this space of grace that you have afforded us to come together and to share in the business affairs of this great city, the city of Bakersfield, which have been declared as the city of righteousness. We pray for our mayor, Mayor Karen Go, and the vice mayor, Bob Smith, along with every council member who represents each ward. We pray for the city officials. And Lord, we speak your divine protection upon their lives. And God of justice and mercy, we thank you for the gift of life and the opportunity to serve the people of our city. Help us to act with character and conviction. Help us to listen with understanding and goodwill. Help us to speak with charity and restraint. And Lord, give us a spirit of service. And remind us that we are stewards of your authority. And guide us to be the leaders your people need. Help us to see the humanity and the dignity of those who disagree with us and to treat all persons, no matter how weak or poor, with the reverence of that your creation deserves. And finally, Father, renew us with the strength of your presence and joy of helping to build a community worthy of the human person. We ask this as your sons and daughters, confident in your goodness and love, in the magnificent name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and you may be seated. Pastor, thank you so much for sharing with us. We really appreciate your investment in the community and education. And Marisa, thank you for all of the good work that you've done on the Youth Commission, and all the best to you as you begin a new school year. Wishing you all the best. I know you're a hardworking student, and you'll do great. Thank you very much. Here are a few guidelines to help our meeting run smoothly. We request that you turn off your phones. And in keeping with council policy, council members aren't allowed to send or receive electronic communications during the meeting. We ask you be courteous in the use of your cameras and videos. Applause is allowed during the presentation portion of the meeting, but it isn't allowed at other times during the meeting. For safety reasons and as a courtesy to others, no signs are allowed in the chambers. Everyone has to be seated for your safety, as we mentioned earlier, so we're just going to be monitoring that as the session goes on, and we see that you're already being very, very cooperative with that, so thank you very, very much. And we appreciate your cooperation. Looking forward to a great meeting. Madam Clerk, would you please read the first item?
Under presentations, we have a proclamation to Sharon Woolfolk, President of the Executive Board of Directors for NAMI Kern County, declaring July 2017 Minority Mental Health Awareness Month in Bakersfield.
What a joy it is to have you here and to have somebody who so passionately is an advocate for those who face great challenges. And it is my privilege as mayor to present this to you, Ms. Woolfolk, as president of NAMI. Whereas mental health is vital to the overall health of the individual, and whereas eliminating the stigma of mental illness and seeking treatment for those conditions, promoting well-being of all people, ensuring equity of access and delivery of services will result in improved outcomes. And whereas early screening, assessment, and referral to the treatment will benefit the entire community, and whereas the dissemination of information regarding access to services and assistance for those with mental illness, as well as their families, particularly among diverse cultural groups within our community, is crucial to addressing the issue of mental illness in our community. Now, therefore, I, Karen Go, Mayor of the City of Bakersfield, do hereby proclaim July 2017 as Minority Mental Health Awareness Month in our city and encourage all citizens to educate themselves regarding the impact of mental illness in our community and to promote wellness in our diverse community. And it's dated in Bakersfield, California, this 19th day of July, and it's signed Karen Go, Mayor of the City of Bakersfield. It's my honor to present this to you.
To our Honorable Mayor Go and council members, thank you so much for this honor. And on behalf of NAMI Kern County and Executive Board members, we are honored to receive this award today. Thank you so much.
Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Presentation of a proclamation to Elijah Lidgett, JDRF Children's Congress Delegate, declaring July 24th through the 26th, 2017, JDRF Days in Bakersfield.
Welcome, Elijah. And you brought a friend with you. It's so great to see you. We are so proud of you that you were selected among people all through the United States to represent something very, very important. So I'm going to read this proclamation, and then you can tell us more about this and introduce your friend. How's that? Good? The mayor of the city of Bakersfield, California, has officially proclaimed July 24th through 26, 2017 as Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation Children's Congress Days in our city in recognition of our local delegate, 10-year-old Elijah Lidgett's selection by the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation to join a delegation of children and celebrity advocates in Washington, D.C., to lobby members of Congress, reminding them of the need to support funding to find a cure for type 1 diabetes in recognition of the children from all 50 states who will participate in activities on Capitol Hill, including sharing personal testimonies highlighting the daily struggles of living with type 1 diabetes, and in recognition of the devastating impact of this disease on people around the globe and the need to find a cure for the benefit of all humanity. And it's signed Karen Go, Mayor of the City of Bakersfield. Elijah, we are so proud to have you here. You were chosen from people all around the United States to represent us. Bakersfield is proud of you, and there are going to be people not only from 50 states going there, but people from all around the globe going to advocate. So would you like to just tell us more about what you're going to be doing and maybe introduce your friend?
So when I go to
Go ahead and face them, okay? That's great. Good. See in the way? All right.
DC, I will be talking to the representatives and senates about getting a research fund for $150 million to cure diabetes.
That is
And-
amazing. Who is that?
That's Gigi, my service dog.
Welcome, Gigi. Anything else? Would you like to share anything else with us? Well, thank you again, and may I present this to you? Congratulations, and we are so glad and proud of you. Here we go. Let's have a picture, Mr. Gary. Gigi, come on in, friends. See us? Or should we step here? Let's go around here. Here. Come on, Gigi. Right there, Mr. Gary. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Presentation of a plaque to Timothy M. Osborne, honoring the beautification efforts of his firm, the Law Office of Timothy M. Osborne.
We are so grateful for those in our community who are choosing to keep Bakersfield beautiful. And I have an appointee who's a volunteer, and she's our alternate on the Keep Bakersfield Community group, and she's going to be coming up and introducing Mr. Osborne. So Heather Pinella, come on up.
Thank you, Mayor Go, council members. It's an honor to be here, and it is my esteemed pleasure to present Tim Osborne with the Beautification Award for his amazing work, as you can see on the screens, at 2200 Truxton Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. This is beautiful. Look right up there, and we had a hard time selecting from many beautiful buildings in our community, but this is presented by Mayor Karen Go, July 19th, 2017. Mayor's Business Beautification Award presented to Law Office of Timothy M. Osborne for your beautiful building and caring for our community. Say a few words.
Very quickly. I realize how busy we are tonight, so I'll be quick. I just wanted to thank the mayor and Ms. Pinella and the city of Bakersfield. I have a whole crew up in the back that has been instrumental in helping us put the practice together and beautify the office over the years that we've been there. And I
Let's have
want to
you
recognize
stand.
them. You guys want to
Go
step
ahead,
out
stand.
from the back? There's more back there, but I guess they're a little bit shy. Anyway, we're all very proud to be from this city, and we intend to do our part to keep making it beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Public statements.
At this time, we'll receive public statements. All statements are given a 3-minute time limit, 15 minutes per topic. I was going to have you come forward, but I don't think that's going to work this time. If you have written comments that are longer than your verbal statement, please give those to the clerk. She'll give those to the council. Please avoid any behavior that disrupts the meeting. We're very interested and concerned with your issues. We really do hear you. But due to the public notice requirement of the Brown Act, the council can't take action when an item isn't on the agenda. The council can, however, refer your matter to the committee or request that staff contact you. Madam Clerk, would you please call the first public speaker?
Mayor Go, we have received 7 speaker cards this evening. 3 regarding separate subjects, and 4 regarding the same subject. The first speaker this evening will be Curtis Bingham regarding positive comments on law enforcement and the city.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself. The clock's right up there, and
Oh,
that's
yes,
how you can
yes.
keep track of it.
Yeah, I'm just, this time gets you. To the Honorable Mayor and the Honorable Board, the Lord would have us always respect those that are in our leadership. So the Lord would just like to bless you with that you would be worth 3 children to your parents. And so far as what you worth to the city can't be measured because you handle so many matters. The Bible tells us that Solomon was the wisest man in the world, so you would fall in that order. I'm here today for our Lord and Savior, God Almighty, Jesus Christ, who truly is the only begotten Son of our Holy Heavenly Father, God Almighty. The Lord said that he sent law enforcement down here, and they're his ministers 3 times in Romans chapter 13. This message here may be one of the most important ones I've ever given. It pertains to everybody here and everybody in the United States, and it was written before anybody here was born. The Lord said, whenever we come in contact with law enforcement, he wants us not to resist them. Don't resist them. You know, do anything they would ask you to do because it'll cause a lot of confusion to go away. That's Romans 13:2. If a law enforcement officer tell you put your hands up and you put them up and you go like this, you just endanger his life. If he tell you put your hands behind your back to cuff you and you go like that, you just endanger his life because you're not doing what he asked you to do. If he had you to pull a car over and tell you to leave the car there, just stay there. Tell your children, your husband, your grandparents, anybody, obey the law, have less to say, and just do exactly as they would have you to do, and you would see a lot of confusion would be taken away. And so the Lord would have us to do that. So tell your children, you know, tell everyone that you know, whenever you come in contact with law enforcement, do exactly what they say and have less to say, and you'll see a big difference. If that don't take place, prepare yourself to see more. Always remember, too, law enforcement don't say, honey, I'm going to work today. I'm going to go out here intentionally hurt and kill somebody, so I want you and the kids to visit me in prison for the rest of my life. They don't do that. Then you also have to remember this. When somebody in law enforcement do something bad, you have to take it like this. If your brother did something bad, continue his whole life. When the Lord say we all got to account for what we do, good or bad, right? The Lord told you that I'm sending you to hell because your brother was so terrible. Would that be fair? That would not be fair. So when somebody in law enforcement do something bad, if it's found out to be true, blame them. Don't blame the chief and the rest of the staff. Do like the Lord would have you do. And also remember too, anybody wearing a badge is also called a millionaire maker. People know you can get some money if I can get any type of negative contact with the law. The Lord knows those out there that are trying to do this very thing, but they are considered as millionaires makers. If you can get in some type of negative contact with them, you can get paid. You can get paid for them, but they can't get paid from you. That's just the way Satan got this society's going right now. So the Lord just wants us to be fair about what's happening out here, what's going on, because the Lord said it's going to get worse and worse. And if we don't do like the Lord said, don't resist them. If you resist them, you're resisting him. Just do what they ask you to do, and you see how we go. Thank you, Mary, and I pray God bless everybody. That time is quick. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Bingham. Audience, just so you know, thank you, Mr. Bingham, for speaking. Applause is allowed during the presentation part. That was the earlier part, but for the remainder of the meeting, we ask you not to applaud. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, next speaker, please.
Marvin Dean.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
I've already handed out those to the staff. My name is Marvin Dean. I'm here to speak on 3 items real fast. The first one is item number consent calendar 8I. It's before you. You know, the last time I spoke, I mentioned that we were going to be inviting Secretary HUD, Secretary Ben Carson to Bakersfield as part of his touring. And I believe that item is your letter that was on this supporting continuation of CBG funds and the home funds. So I think it's appropriate that I came back tonight to give you a copy of the letter, just so you know what's going on. And then if we're successful in getting the Secretary to come to Bakersfield, and I think we will, then we're going to ask the city to be a part of that so we can have a full-blown conversation with the Secretary in terms of what's best for our community and what he's proposing to do. The second item I'm here to speak on is the water rate issue. We got to do something about it, so we're going to have to probably raise these rates, which I don't like to see it. We're going to have to do it. But I would say because the estimates are going to be, I think it's several $1 million worth of repairs going to be, but I would just ask that if the repairs come in lower, that whatever rates you set to, say the public have to pay, that we offset that and rebate back to the public if it comes in for the repairs to do the cleanup or less than what we anticipate the cost to be. I think that's only right, but everybody's got to cover the load. But if we come in lower with estimates, we should pass that back to the public. The last item, I'm going to be very brief on. It's a public hearing matter, and I don't want to come up a second time, so I'm just going to speak on it now, and that's your PACE program. Here's how I sum it up. First of all, I have no contracts. I'm not a consultant. I'm not a lobbyist. Even though I represent a trade association, none of my members I know that actually have contracts, but I'm a private property owner that owns property. I look at this as a private property issue. If I, as a property owner, do my due diligence and I want to take advantage of this loan, I should be able to do that, and any other person that owns property should be able to do that. And we have been a strong community for property rights in this community. And if a person chooses not to take the loan, they don't have to take the loan. And for those people that may not do their due diligence in terms of educating themselves or get 3 estimates and all that, we should set up maybe more education programs to make sure that we can put in place something to help those folks that may need help with making an informed decision. But you should not deny the rest of us that can make the informed decision, that want to make the loan, that we should not be denied that opportunity. So I just thought I'd just say that. It's just, to me, a straight out property rights issue that a property owner that's intelligent and informed should be able to get the loan if he wants to. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. Madam Clerk, next speaker, please.
Mona Sidhu regarding marginalized communities.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Good evening. My name is Mona Sidhu, SIDHU. Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. I was here before when the city decided, or the city council decided they needed to reword their resolution on federal funds because apparently asking for the funds not to be cut was seen by some as polarizing, and so a compromise of sorts was reached to simply say we support continued funding. I can't say that I understand the reasoning behind that, but I have to accept it. And I would be ungrateful if I were to say that we'd rather not have anything at all. So I'll say this: I'm glad that we are doing something. I'm glad we are speaking up. And even if it's not as strong as I would like, I'm glad that it is being addressed, and I'm grateful for that. I would like to urge the City Council to do one more thing beyond hopefully passing the resolution this evening and hopefully passing it unanimously, and that is to do more than simply pass the resolution. You all have strong, powerful, and influential voices, and I would ask each of you individually to reach out to our federal representatives and urge them not to take away from the least powerful and influential among us, the hungry and the homeless. I would ask you to amplify their voices, voices that are often not heard. And I believe the resolution is a good first step, but that is what it is. It's a first step. More is going to be required if those funds are going to be retained. And I would ask each of you to do everything you can so that at the end, regardless of the outcome, as a resident of the city, I can say my city council did everything in their power to make sure that the poor, that the hungry, that the homeless had a voice, and that that voice was amplified by our leaders. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sidhu. Madam Clerk, next speaker, please.
Dean Welliver regarding police reform.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Dean Welliver, and I'm here as a private citizen. And I would just like to recommend that in light of the incident with Tatiana Hargrove and then the report from The Guardian about the Bakersfield Police Department being the deadliest police force per capita in the United States, I'd like to recommend as a citizen that we implement a citizens community oversight committee on the police force to help improve relationships between the police and the community. And additionally, I'd like to ask that if it ever comes before the city council, that you guys approve a budget for the police to have body cameras, so that way it's more transparent when incidents of police brutality occur. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williver. Madam Clerk, next speaker, please.
Jeanette Limones regarding justice for Tatiana and minority mental health awareness.
It's a long ways from all the way up there. Welcome.
Yeah.
Please introduce yourself.
Thank you. My name is Jeanette Limones, and I come before you as a concerned resident of Bakersfield, California, born and raised here. I've been seeing a lot of things going on, and it's alarming to see all the, things that we win here that are really bad. Worst air quality, highest police brutality, highest, members of the KKK, things that I see all the time. They're really alarming. And, the highest incarceration rate, and then you see the police brutality incident that happened to Tatiana, and I'm here to call for justice and on Tatiana's behalf, because I know it's not just about one person, and it's not an isolated incident. It's actually quite common, and so I'm here for justice for Tatiana, and also to call for body cameras. And not only that we need a budget for body cameras, but an independent, somebody else who has access to that data, and not by our police or sheriff, law enforcement that are under investigation and had a practice of behaviors that are not lawful. So I call for independent access to those cameras, where they can't turn them off and turn them on, because I know there's those issues as well. And also I want to slightly touch on the mental health. I know that, thank you for the minority proclamation of mental health. I know how big of a problem it is. I've experienced it. Everyone that I know and talk to, if not has a mental health, knows somebody really close to them that struggles with mental health or mental illness. And I want to remind people that even in our juvenile system, 70% of the juveniles in detention centers have a mental illness. And we don't need to be fighting mental illness with building more prisons, especially privatized prisons. We need to awareness. And so I thank you for the proclamation and bringing that to the that attention of the crisis, so that we can make change in our community, starting with our law enforcement and then the policies and the budget that we allow. So thank you for your time. And again, we need protection. We need more protection, and I urge you leaders to stand up for our community, and we demand change. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Limones.
Also, before I go, there are more out there that wanted to speak. I have 2 more here. I just want to make sure that everybody gets their voices heard.
Give them to our clerk up here. Thank you. Madam Clerk, next speaker, please.
Paula Hinojosa regarding police demands.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name's my name's Paola Hinojosa, and I'm here as a concerned citizen regarding the Tatiana case. I just think it's bad enough. We're known for having bad pollution, we don't need to be known as having the deadliest police force in the nation either. So when we're here to ask for body cameras and committee oversight, community oversight committees, we're not just asking, we are demanding, because how many more cases like Tatiana's have to happen for this to become, for this to be implemented? It's not okay, it's not right, and just because the people in charge who have power, the authority, get to get away with it, that's not right. Tatiana needs to be heard. Tatiana's case needs to be taken seriously, because our youth cannot be going through situations like this. It's not all right. I am tired of seeing police brutality cases on the social media, on TV, everywhere. And for it to happen here in Bakersfield, I'm pretty sure it's not the first case, and it's probably not going to be the last case unless something's done. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Hinojosa. Next speaker, please, Madam Clerk.
Patrick Jackson, NAACP President, regarding police improvements.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself and proceed.
Patrick Jackson, President of the NAACP Bakersfield Branch. I'm here before you today. Believe most of you have heard of the Tatiana Hargrove case, and she is here along with her parents, and this has been a concern for our community for quite some time. The other speakers have echoed the issues that we have had in this community for years, the stigma with our department, the improvements that Chief Lyle Martin is trying to make, and of course, we need the council to make these decisions. We've been before you a few times. I believe it went before Andre Gonzalez and the Budget Committee. I'm not sure where that's lying yet for the body cameras, but at this point, obviously, we know that this is no longer a want, it's a need for our community to deter these type of incidents from happening, to protect our citizens, and also to protect our law enforcement as well. We've heard from other cities that the complaints from the community goes down drastically, because obviously when you have a camera on you, you typically don't want to make a complaint that's false. And so we believe that this would deter these situations from happening. And again, how many more Tatianas have to happen? How many more David Silvas have to happen? How many more of these type of cases of Timothy and Xavier has to happen before this council makes a decision on moving forward? Now, as this continues to happen, and we have our esteemed leaders in position that have not moved on this matter, obviously we need to make sure that we have leadership that is concerned about the city's citizens in this city. And if this is your child, if this is someone that is near and dear to you, I believe we will start to look at this in a different light and understand that this is a serious matter. A lot of times we don't really take matters as seriously until it hits home, whether it's police brutality, whether it's mental health, whether it's something in some type of field of diabetes or whatnot. It seems like it really doesn't resonate with us and think that it's an emergency until that appointed time for us to get involved. And at this point, we believe that it's time for our city council to take a stand, our mayor to take a stand, whatever needs to happen for our city to make this happen. We believe that you need to make that happen. And we're believing in your leadership. We're believing in you. You are elected to these positions, and we believe that you are the people that can help make that change. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Madam Clerk, next speaker, please.
Larsenia Taylor, comments regarding mental health training for BPD and KCSO.
Ms. Taylor, it's your opportunity. Would you like to come up? Come on up and introduce yourself. Welcome.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Larsenia Taylor. I'm from Bakersfield.
I initially wasn't going to talk. I thought someone else was going to talk, and I was just supporting, but basically, the brutality that's happening here in Bakersfield, it's not just here, it's everywhere. And I think we need to try to, as Bakersfield, we need to try to be different and let the BPD know that we're behind them, but we're not behind them when they're wrong. And when I saw that young lady all beat up, I was just imagining if that was my daughter and how I would react. We have to realize some things, that the Bakersfield Police Department, they're composed of citizens. And with citizens, we all have different issues in life. And what happens, these police officers, not just them, everyday citizens, they bring their problems on the job. And if they don't know how to handle them, they take it out on the citizens. And I think maybe that may be what happened to Mrs. Tatiana. But to further speak about this is that the council has the opportunity to do what's right. And you know what's right. And I need to speak just a little bit on, I forgot, I'm sorry, I need to speak a little bit about everything being okay when they do that. When they beat up a citizen, it's always justified. And only way to eliminate that justification is to have citizens part of a committee. And that committee can be composed of citizens and maybe 2 police officers. But it just doesn't make sense to me to the city to continuously pay for lawsuits. We just need to do better as a city. And I know we can do better as a city because we have some great leaders, especially you, Ms. Go. You have to make the decision of what is right in your heart, not a political decision. I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Madam Clerk, do we have any other public speakers?
We have one more speaker, Mayor. Crystal Wood, comments regarding justice for Tatiana and mental health.
Hi, my name is Crystal Wood, and not only am I here for justice for Tatiana, but I'm also here for mental health awareness as well. Many of you may not be aware of this, but I have had problems with Bakersfield Police Department, Kern County Sheriff's Department, and despite filing the so-called internal affairs investigation to get justice for myself, I was told there was no wrongdoing. It is not okay for internal affairs to investigate their officers, because I can tell you from my experience that there was never going to be any justice in my case. I was told that my panic attacks were words that are not even appropriate to say at this meeting by Officer Vasquez. I was told that it was a waste of time. When I told Internal Affairs that your training is little to none for your Bakersfield police officers and Kern County Sheriff's officers, when I described what it feels like to have a panic attack, I was told, are you sure you don't remember all the details correctly? No, excuse me. I have bipolar depression, I have anxiety, and I have panic attacks, but I know exactly what happened that day. And to have officers sit there and tell my husband that my panic attacks were a waste of time and BS, according to Officer Vasquez, that angers me, because I just came out of a NAMI meeting tonight where it is mandatory for cadets to take mental health training. However, it's optional for law enforcement that's already established to have to take mental health treatment. And when I told them that I wasn't mentally stable to sign something, I was threatened with jail time, thrown in a squad car, beaten by the officers, all because I stood up for my rights. It is not optional all law enforcement, Bakersfield Police Department, Kern County Sheriff's Department, they need training on how to deal with the mental health community. There are not enough. You guys are well aware that The Guardian has held an article that we have the deadliest police force. I'm ashamed to say that we have the deadliest police force. I know of all the cases that are going on. And when's it gonna stop? When's it gonna stop? When are police gonna keep getting to investigate themselves so that I get letters in the mail saying no wrongdoing was found? When's it gonna stop? Tatiana? Francisco Serna? David Silva? What's it gonna take for council members to listen to society, to listen to the community?
Ms. Wood, your time is up. Can you bring your comments to a close? Thank you for sharing.
There's also one other person that would like to speak as well.
If it's on the same topic,
No, it's regarding.
if it's on the same topic, Madam Clerk, do you already have the card? No. Would somebody bring that up, please? It's possible she couldn't get in here. If it's on a different topic, we're able to do that. We've already used 15 minutes on the one topic. Thank you. Same topic? Okay. We allow 15 minutes per topic, and we've already used our 15 minutes, so we would just invite the others of you to come back at another time if it's on the same topic of the police and Tatiana. So if there's anybody else who has a card that's already filled out that's on a different topic, then go ahead and bring that forward. If not, we'd invite you back at another time to continue. We're
I'm here about Tatiana, and I called you, and your office gave me the wrong email.
Madam, we're going to ask you to not make comments from there. That's just not appropriate.
This isn't fair to the city of Bakersfield. You're not representing the city of Bakersfield. And thank you for your office giving me the wrong phone number. That's why I didn't vote for you.
Thank you, those of you who are here today. We realize that there was great interest in the meeting today, and our accommodations are such that we do have some space in the overflow room, but that's just the physical setup of our facility. So if you didn't have a chance to voice your comments today on that same topic, you're welcome to come back at another time during public comments, but we always do allow 15 minutes per topic. Thank you, all of you who have shared today. Tatiana, thank you for being here, and we wish you a speedy recovery. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Under workshops, we have a workshop on water rate study and proposed rate increase associated with 123 TCP water well treatment. Mayor Go, a staff memorandum has been received regarding this item, providing recent history of domestic water rate increases applicable to the City of Bakersfield's domestic service area.
Mr. Tandy, would you like to start, please?
Honorable Mayor and members of City Council, there are going to be two presentations tonight, one by representatives of the City Water Department and City Finance Department, and then afterward by representatives of Cal Water. We're here for a unique, unfortunate, and unusual set of circumstances. Today, actually, the State Water Quality Control Board voted to enact regulatory limits on the chemical TCP in water systems. In anticipation of the adoption of those regulations, we've already committed the area of $12 million for improvements, analysis, and consultants to help us move into compliance. The cost of some $55 million capital and $5 million a year exceeds the current capacity of our water fund to bear and is going to necessitate a large rate increase. I believe Mr. Cianello is going to, or Mr. Smith will present a history of our rate increases. We've been very conservative, tried to limit them to a minimal, actually gone a number of years with no increase at all. But the costs of this action are enormous and can only be handled through a rate increase. With that, I believe Art Chianello is speaking first, and then Nelson Smith, our Finance Director.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the Council. Art Chianello, Water Resources Department. Starting off the presentation tonight on the water rate case, the agenda will be talking about a project background, project costs and financial plan, then moving on to objectives of the rate study and recommendations, and then finally the proposed rate increases and next steps. Some background on this project on 123 TCP. TCP is a groundwater contaminant found in groundwater in California and especially in the Central Valley and in the Bakersfield area. On May 10th, 2017, City Council meeting adopted emergency resolutions to initiate emergency TCP treatment project to ensure that the city continues to deliver water that meets the state standards after January of 2018. In July of 2017, the State Water Resources Control Board Division of Drinking Water, it occurred yesterday, July of 18th. Yesterday, they did approve the new maximum contaminant level for TCP. After January 2018, we'll be required to start sampling and to be in compliance. Actions are needed that will include wellhead treatment for numerous active city wells, long-term treatment, new wells, ongoing sampling, and any other planning and costs associated with this TCP impact. There's a very short time frame between adoption and compliance, which has necessitated the city to conduct some business outside of our normal procedures. Actions to date: on June 7th of 2017, the City Council awarded an $8.3 million contract for purchase of water well vessels for the removal of the TCP contaminant and associated piping with Evoqua Water Technologies, and City Council also approved agreement with Kutak Rock to serve as bond counsel for the future water bond financing. On June 20th, 2017, staff completed the RFP process and selected a special rate consultant, Stantec Consulting, to assist the city in determining the proposed rate increases. On June 28th, 2017, City Council approved a $1.3 million agreement with WM Lyles, a company, for phase one of our design build contract and implementation for the TCP mitigation project. Staff is responding as quickly as possible to achieve the successful treatment given the very short time frame between adoption, which occurred yesterday, and the new state guidelines, which will begin starting in January of 2018. This map of the various water purveyors within City of Bakersfield. Tonight, the rate increases that we're talking about is in the City of Bakersfield's domestic water service area, which is the light green shown up there on the map. Approximately 46,000 metered connections, or approximately 146,000 people. It's west of Stein Road. You can see it goes down to Taft Highway, and then as far north as up to Snow Road. Some project costs and financing information. The initial capital cost for treatment of wells are estimated at $55 million. We have our first phase to cover 27 wells for treatment at approximately $35 million. And then immediately following that would be the second phase of 14 wells for the remaining $20 million. We have some cash on hand to cover some of the initial capital project expenses, such as what we've incurred to date, such as vessel procurement and design costs. We are looking at two issues of water revenue bonds, which will correspond with the project phasing and costs associated with that phasing. I will now introduce Mark Hildebrand from Stantec Consulting, who will discuss some information regarding the water rate study in more detail.
Thank you, Art. Thank you for having me. Just a quick note about who we are, and then I'll jump into the presentation. Work for Stantec. We have 31 consultants that are specialized in utility rate setting, and we've been hired by the city to conduct this study. Next slide. So I'm going to go through these slides fairly quickly. I understand that most of the folks in the audience here are here for a different matter. There's a couple slides there I'll slow down just to make sure that there's a complete understanding. We will be submitting a comprehensive report that goes through all these things in a great amount of detail, so if you'd like to read that at your leisure and really absorb it, I invite you to do so. So the objectives that we had when we started this rate study just about a month ago was to develop a financial plan for your water utility that would provide sufficient revenues to cover both your operating costs and enough to issue bonds to pay for this change in regulations that's going to require the utility to conduct their business a little differently in terms of how it treats its water. It's going to increase capital costs and it's going to increase your operating costs. Important for that bond issue, which is going to finance the capital improvements, is to achieve a AA rating, just like your sewer utility currently has, in order to access lower interest rates and make it as cheap as possible for the city to be able to make these improvements. That includes having a sufficient reserve, cash reserve on hand, and a coverage ratio of 1.6, which is basically a metric for how easily you can pay for your outstanding debt. Next slide. So by way of background, this is the water utility, and this is your revenue. You can see that it's 98% of your revenue comes from your rates, with only a very small amount coming from miscellaneous fees and interest on income. So that sort of just puts into perspective where your revenue comes from. These are the bills that your customers pay. Next slide. On the other side of the equation are your expenses. So in terms of expenses, you've got your operating expenses. You have your cash capital, so your capital projects that you pay with cash, and then you have your debt payments, which are paying for your capital projects with debt payments. This right here is looking exclusively at it's looking at your operating expenses as well as your existing debt. So you can see that the largest part of the pie is your outside services because you contract out your operations. And then you also purchase quite a bit of water, which is the water portion there. Next slide. You can see that the green part of this bar chart shows $55 million in capital spending on your TCP removal projects over the next couple of years, and that's the project that will be debt financed with the bond. And I'm sorry, just really quickly, just as compared to the orange and red slivers at the bottom, which is your normal capital spending in a given year. So you can see this signifies a very large departure from your normal capital spending for a typical year. Next slide. So we did some financial projections. We looked at a long-term financial model that looked at your operating costs, your capital spending. We anticipated some escalation in costs and anticipated the amount of growth that you'd be experiencing in terms of how much water you would be selling and needing to deliver. And again, we balanced the model such that you would be targeting this AA bond rating because we understand how the bonding rating agencies work and what sort of metrics they measure. So we calibrated the model so that you'd have 6 months of cash on hand and that you'd have a 1.6 debt coverage ratio. Next slide. So this is the slide where I'm going to slow down a little bit because this is the output of the model. Now this is not what we're proposing. This is simply to show you what would happen if you did not increase rates, if you just tried to issue the bonds, which you wouldn't qualify for. But if you did somehow issue the bond and paid that debt, this is what your financial outlook would look like. So what we have here is the orange line at the top are your total expenses. And you can see the bump in 2018-19 is the amount of cash that you'll be paying for the TCP removal project. In addition, it's going up because of the new debt service that you'd be paying on that capital project. And in general, it increases slowly over time because of inflation. The bar chart, so predominantly gray bar charts, that's your total revenue that you collect on an annual basis. So anytime that the orange line is higher than the bar chart, you're losing money, so you're using your cash reserves. Anytime the bar chart would be higher than the orange line, you would be putting money aside. So you can see in nearly every year of this projection, you'd be spending more money than you'd be collecting. And as a result, the blue line, which shows your ending fund balance, which is essentially how much cash is in the enterprise, is dropping precipitously over time, and you go past zero, you go into a negative fund balance in 2020, 2021. And the final part of this graph is the dotted black line, which is the 6-month cash reserve that we're trying to target. So really, you don't want to go past 2019 where you see it dropping below the 6-month cash reserve target. So in order to avoid this situation, these are the rate increases that we're proposing. It would be 16% effective nearly immediately in October of this year, followed by 13% increase next year and a 7.6% rate increase the year after that. And this is that same chart that shows what the enterprise fund will look like in the event that you adopt those rates. You can see that the piece of this graph that's been added are the checkered part of the bar chart, which is the additional rate revenue that you'll be collecting as a result of the rate increases. So the grayish green on the bottom is what you'd be collecting anyways. The checkered is the additional rate revenue that you'd be collecting, and you can see that it meets the orange line in most years, and so you wouldn't see a change in fund balance in those years. And you can see the blue line drops initially and then levels out and stays above the reserve target that we're targeting. So at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Nelson Smith.
Thank you. Before you start, Mr. Smith, we have some people standing in the back, and we're not allowed to do that. So can we have staff just show them where they're able to go and be able to see this? Thank you for wanting to participate. We're sorry that we just don't have the room to accommodate you, but staff will show you where you can watch the hearing. Thank you very much. Mr. Smith, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor.
And Dave, in the control room, just so you know, our small monitors are not on. Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Nelson Smith, Finance Director. Just to review, Art's already talked about this chart, but the light green area is the service area we're proposing the rate increases for. That's the city domestic water system area. This slide shows a typical monthly water bill, shows the city of Bakersfield current typical monthly rate at $36.20 compared to other water agencies in the Bakersfield area. With the proposed rate increases as of July of 2019, if all of the rate increases are imposed, then the typical cost would go from $36.20 to $50.89. Still one of the lower rates in the area. This is the same City of Bakersfield information compared to other cities in California. And as you can see, even with the increase, we're still one of the lowest fees in the state with our comparable cities. Tonight, we're asking you to authorize us to mail out a Prop 218 notice to the domestic water customers. With that notice going out, there would be a public hearing held on September 6th. Coming back on September 6th, we would also be asking you to approve the bond documents for the first phase of construction financing. And we're proposing that the first rate increase of 16% would go into effect on October 1. And with that, Mr. Tianello and Mr. Hildebrand and myself are available for any questions.
Any questions from the council? Councilmember Weir.
Thank you, Mayor. I move staff's recommendation on 6A.
We have a motion. Please cast your vote.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. And thank you, staff. Thank you, Mr. Consultant, for presenting. Appreciate that. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Presentation by California Water Service Company regarding Cal Water's project to comply with upcoming state mandates regarding 123 TCP.
Thank you. Mr. Telia is going to, I think, start this off.
Good evening, Mayor Go, members of the council, Steve Telia, City Manager's Office. As Mr. Tandy mentioned earlier, there's two presentations before you tonight on the issue of TCP mitigation. The first you heard was obviously for the City of Bakersfield's water service area. And in addition to that, the presentation you're about to hear was at the request of California Water Service Company, the city's largest water purveyor. They had requested to come before the council tonight and provide an update on their efforts related to TCP mitigation. So with that, I'm going to introduce Mike Mayers, the Bakersfield District Manager for Cal Water, who will be providing the presentation. Nope, sorry.
Yeah, I don't want to do that one.
Which one is it? I'll let you pick it. I don't know. I can't see which one it is. There it is.
There we go.
You control it.
Thank you.
Welcome.
How you doing? All right, good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Again, my name is Mike Morris. I'm the district manager for Cal Water Bakersfield. And I'm actually really happy that I will not be discussing any type of rate increases, and we're just going to be giving you a brief update on our meeting the TCP compliance deadline. So this is going to be tricky. I'm used to having a, you want to click for me? Super. So this constituent has been watched very closely by Cal Water as well as environmental health regulators, actually for decades. Currently, we're in the end stages of the regulatory process, but this formal process began more than a year ago and certainly began in earnest with a series of public workshops, including one in here in Bakersfield, as you can see on the deadline there, or excuse me, the timeline. The MCL of 5 parts per trillion was adopted yesterday. Prior to that, regulators have indicated for quite some time that the draft MCL of 5 parts per trillion was very likely to become the formal MCL. So monitoring began, the monitoring will begin January of 2018. On this second timeline, there was a few changes as a result of yesterday's State Water Resources Control meeting. And just want to kind of have a little bit here for the press. There's a little bit of confusion on a few of the details I saw going around the media today, so I can provide a copy of this for folks. So the MCL of 5 parts per trillion for 123 TCP was adopted by the State Water Resources Control Board yesterday as expected. However, the effective date that was expected to be July 1st is being pushed back until it is approved by the Office of Administrative Law, and then the Secretary of State will then need to publish the new regulation before finalizing the effective date. And that being said, the new effective date is expected to be October 1st of this year. Doesn't change the compliance date. It's still expected to be January 2018. It's just a small detail, but just wanted to clarify a few things. On this next slide, we're talking about the impact for everybody in the valley here, for Cal Water here in the valley. So Bakersfield, in our system, we have 25 wells affected. Our Visalia operations, we have 11 wells affected. And in Selma, we have 2 wells affected. And as your operator, or the operator for the city's Bakersfield system, we will be helping the city, you folks, make sure that we get everything we do to help get the wells in compliance. We'll be providing inspection services during the construction process, and then, of course, ongoing operation maintenances and anything else requested by the city. On this next slide, so obviously our goal to meet 100% compliance, a couple of things we decided to do. First one is we decided to go with a direct purchase of our vessels. That's going to save money. It also puts us in front of the line. These vessels are going to be very much in high demand, as you can imagine. We got out in front of this thing, and with that lead time, we shortened up with that direct purchase with design, materials, fabrication, delivery, things like that. So that was something we felt was really important. And then we're also decided to go with a progressive design build in 2 phases. Phase 1 was the design and permitting. Phase 2 will be the construction process. And
We have 3 groupings of well sites to prioritize for our construction. So the first group, it consists of 17 wells, and all of those wells have 20 parts per trillion or more. All of those wells are expected to be in compliance by January 1st. Our second group consists of 3 wells between 5 parts and 20 parts per trillion. We expect to have those online April 1st of 2018. And then our third group consists of 5 wells that are at 5 parts per trillion, and those are going to be online July 1st, 2018. We use 5 parts per trillion because as of right now, that's the lowest you can detect it. At least that's what I'm being told by our water quality experts. Slide 7. So our current status. Design is complete and fabrication for the vessels is underway at 2 plants. We've got 100 plus vessels on the way. And from what I just was told not too long ago, probably about an hour ago, we have 14 of those vessels are actually complete. We are on schedule with that part of it. As mentioned, Lyles is our contractor. Phase 1, 70% design is complete. Soils work is complete. Planning permit CEQA applications are complete. Our Kit Fox surveys are in progress, and we are on schedule with that. Slide 8. This is one everybody's probably been wondering about, is, what's the impact for our ratepayers? So we're anticipating the proceeds from TCP lawsuit to offset capital and maintenance costs. So no immediate effect on ratepayers for this treatment. However, if proceeds are not recovered in the TCP lawsuit, recovery of expenses and rates will be sought in future CPUC proceedings. Slide 9 is our communication plan. So like I'm here tonight, giving you everybody a brief update. That's something that we've been talking to all you council members, something we wanted to provide, especially with the TCP stuff that's ongoing, any other rate increases, things of that. So this is part of that plan, making sure we're communicating with you folks, making sure we're communicating with city staff. That includes letters, meetings, and such. Making sure we're communicating with the media, with press releases. We just sent one out this afternoon. Hopefully you folks saw that. We want to keep our customers informed by providing updates to our website. There'll be bill messages and also using social media. For our customers in areas of construction, we will be delivering letters door to door and possibly hosting community meetings if that's something they desire. We will be providing our our employees with fact sheets so they'll be able to consistently and accurately answer customer calls when they come in asking about this new regulation. And any unique issues, we'll respond individually, and hopefully we can catch some of that stuff with some public outreach too. And this is a copy of our schedule. So if you look at that first line, that represents today. That second line is the compliance deadline of 1/1/18, and then you've got April phase 2 deadline, and then July our phase 3 construction deadline. And this schedule represents, where we're at with our RFP issue and award, things like our phase 1 design and permit, phase 2 construction group, things like that, all the way to our communication plan, public outreach. It's all there in detail. And really what this last slide here represents is the cooperation and the synergy we're going to need from the state, with the city, with our contractors, and of course with our staff. Working together, this is a huge challenge ahead of us, and it's really going to take the cooperation between us, city staff, to make sure that the entire town of Bakersfield meets this very important compliance deadline in January. So that concludes my formal presentation. We have a couple pictures, examples of what some of these vessels can look like. Depending on the amount of flow, how much property we have to work on. There's various design models. Some of them are 4 vessels on a site. Some of them are duals like this. And they're kind of custom, depending on how much area you have to work with and how much flow you're getting out of that particular well. So with that concludes my presentation. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to try to address them.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. Any questions from the council? Councilmember Weir.
I move staff's recommendation on item 6B.
You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Consent calendar items 8A through 8AM for approval.
Councilmember Weir.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe there are no items that council members wish to pull for separate consideration tonight. Are there any items which a council member wishes to recuse himself or herself? Seeing none, I move the approval of item 8A through 8AM.
You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. Next item, please, Madam Clerk.
Consent calendar public hearings items 9A through 9I for approval. A staff memorandum has been received regarding items 9C through 9I, stating the resolutions have been revised to replace the signature block of the former mayor with the current mayor and to add the council members' names to the voting blocks.
We're just going to wait for 1 minute before, just to proceed and wait for our council member to return. While we're at it, if you want to stand up and stretch, feel free to do that. I'm going to do it too.
It's too late.
We're stretching in your honor, Councilmember Freeman. All right, very good. Let's be seated and continue. All right, it's time to continue, so go ahead and be seated, please. We're going to move on with our meeting. If you have a conversation here, would you please take it out to the lobby? As the clerk has said, this is the time for our consent calendar hearing items, calendar public hearing items. And tonight, there are 9 items on this part of the agenda. 7 of them deal with the acquisition of land for the TRIP project. Each item is listed by address on the agenda. The purpose of this section is to vote on all of the items listed on the consent calendar hearing in one motion without further comment. If anyone would like to speak on any of these hearing items listed, the item must be removed from this portion of the agenda. If an item is removed, it would be placed at the end of the regular public hearing portion of the meeting. So please note, this is really important tonight, please note that if an item is pulled, it will go to the end of the hearing section of the agenda. That's the end of Section 10, and it's anticipated that the hearing items will be somewhat extended tonight. So if an item is pulled from the consent calendar, just be prepared to stay here for some time. You're welcome to do that, but just know that it's going to go at the very end. At this time, I'll open consent calendar public hearings, items 9A through 9I. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to request that a hearing item be removed from the consent calendar? If so, please come forward. This isn't the time to take testimony, only to remove the matter from the consent calendar hearing. Seeing none, does any council member wish to remove an item from the consent calendar hearing? Seeing none, at this time, the consent calendar public hearing items 9A through 9I are now closed. Vice Mayor? Councilmember Weir.
I've been promoted.
I just promoted you. Our vice mayor actually is hopefully celebrating on the birth of his new grandchild somewhere far away. They've already celebrated. Oh, wonderful. Okay, Councilmember Weir.
I move staff's recommendation on items 9A through 9I as revised.
You have a motion. Please cast your vote.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Under hearings,
Before I open the public hearings, I'll go over the presentation time policy. Each side will be allowed 15 minutes. It's 15 minutes for all speakers, so it's very important that you identify yourself, make your statement quickly, and allow others then to speak. We'll hear statements from those opposed to the staff recommendation. Then we'll hear from those who would like to speak in favor of staff's recommendation. If there's testimony from both sides, each side will be allowed a 5-minute rebuttal. There's a clock on the wall behind me which indicates 15 minutes. So we'd ask that you would please step to the microphone, identify yourself, and after 14 minutes, a light will come on. At the end of 15 minutes, a red light will flash indicating that your time is up, and at that point, we'd ask you to quickly end your statement. You may ask questions during your statement, but they won't be answered until the public hearing is closed. If you have written comments that are longer than your verbal statements, give those to the clerk, and she'll provide copies to the council. Please be courteous to others who wish to speak. Unless there's approval by the majority of the city council, there's a strict 15-minute, that's 1-5 time limit for all those in favor and all those in opposition to staff's recommendation. So please be concise, avoid repeating yourself, and avoid repeating the remarks of previous speakers. Madam Clerk, please read the first public hearing item.
hearing to consider resolutions terminating the Cal First, E3, Fig Tree, Hero, and Y Green Property Assessed Clean Energy PACE programs in Bakersfield. Email correspondence has been received in support of the PACE program from Stephanie Larson, Dustin Rylick, Carlos Lopez, Sandra Randolph, Teresa Rizzo, Rod Dole, Evlando Cooper, and Richard Sharp. Correspondence in opposition to the PACE program was received from Robin Ablin, Bob Hayworth, and B.W. Shipman. One email regarding PACE education was received from Kevin Hobner, and 2 phone calls were received, one in support of the PACE programs and one in opposition.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Tandy?
Honorable Mayor and members of City Council, if you just give us a second to bring up the show. That's right. You are here tonight to consider the possible termination of the Property Assessed Clean Energy Program in Bakersfield. Whoops. Slow-acting mouse. Yeah. All right, you go ahead, if you would. The PACE program, I'm going to characterize it differently than most of the speakers who will be appearing after me. You're really only making one decision tonight. You're not making a decision that's pro or con business. You're not making a decision which is pro or con clean energy, nor are you making a decision that's for or against individual service providers. Your decision is whether it is in the public interest of your constituents to continue to allow placement of PACE charges on property tax bills, and that is the extent and limit of the substance of the decision before you. PACE program was created by Laws and Opportunity in California in 2008, allows clean energy improvement programs to be placed on property tax bills as a priority lien. By priority lien, that typically means it is above the first mortgage on the home in the same position as city, county, school district taxes, etc. Bakersfield has authorized 5 PACE providers to operate beginning in 2010 and then up through the HERO program in 2014 and Y-Green and T3 in 2015. This is a couple of months dated information, but it's fairly accurate that they have reported approximately 2,700 projects have been completed, 1,174 for solar energy, 105 for drought-related. The balance are for roof replacements, air conditioning, doors, windows, and related. Recently, the Association of Realtors approached the city, and I note, I asked them when they were founded in Bakersfield and what their membership was. 1905 and nearly 2,000 members. They requested, due to experiences they were seeing out in the economy, that we rescind the approval for the PACE providers to operate. Allegations include that customers did not understand their property tax bill was going up and are experiencing hardships, out-of-market costs for the improvements, out-of-market costs for the interest rates, disruption of real estate transactions due to the priority lien status of PACE loans, and also that standard home improvements such as roofs, air conditionings, and the like do not belong on the property tax bill prior to the dates of the PACE service providers being authorized. They were done in the normal economy. PACE counters with they provide jobs, they provide energy efficiency, they indicate that disclosure laws have improved, additional disclosure laws and application of federal consumer protection standards are under consideration in the legislature and Congress respectively. One of them, at least, has indicated they're willing to enter into a participation agreement with the city. In the opinion of staff, the review and consideration of this issue by multiple organizations in the community is of great significance. The Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce, I believe founded in 1920, and with about 1,100 members, has considered the matter and is recommending termination of the agreements. Kern Tax is recommending termination of the agreements. The Kern County Board of Supervisors, after public hearings and due consideration, voted to terminate the PACE programs outside the city limits. The city's Budget and Finance Committee held a lengthy hearing on the matter. They voted to send it to the City Council with no recommendation. They did ask for a variety of research items to be done. I am not going to read all of these items in detail. Most of the research was actually done by the City Attorney's Office, but I will attempt to give a quick summarization of what was found. There was a question as to whether Los Angeles hadn't overcome the issues associated with PACE providers elsewhere, and if so, could we model ourselves after them? The City of Los Angeles created a joint powers agreement under which they control the creation and structure of their PACE program, giving them direct control. Bakersfield has chosen a hands-off model, choosing only to subscribe to services provided by others, so that did not afford a solution to the issues which have been raised. We were asked to provide a full scope number of instances where homeowners have been wronged. The Association of Realtors have turned in 46 cases where they believe inadvertent negative results have occurred. There have been stories in the local newspaper and local visual media. There have been stories in the Los Angeles Times and in other jurisdictions in the state of California. The fact that consideration of reform of the PACE program has been initiated at both the state legislature and Congress of the United States indicates that there has, in fact, been a problem. Can the city staff confirm the number of foreclosures related to the PACE programs? Substantively, no. There are many things that can occur when a homeowner is distressed, including short sales and other models, and we do not have concrete evidence on the number of foreclosures that have taken place. Would a proposed PACE participation agreement accomplish? Can the agreement be tied to the Joint Powers Authority? It is the opinion of the city attorney and city manager's offices that a participation agreement is essentially a statement of good faith. It does not have an enforcement mechanism. It does not contain a monitoring mechanism. City officials would not be in the homes of people when they're signing up. And thus it would become a retrospective look at the conduct of the companies. We do not believe it is a cure to the issues that exist. What is the status of state and federal legislation involving regulation and reform of PACE programs? You may get differential answers on this. I'm relying upon a communication from the city attorney's office I received earlier this week that Senate Bill 242, which is the state reform legislation, had been gutted of some of the substantive elements of reform that were contained in earlier drafts that may or may not be added back. The bill is not through the legislature yet. The federal reform legislation is not through the legislature yet either. You can't see this on the screen, but these are the 46 complaints recanted by the Association of Realtors in regard to hardship cases, distress cases, and so on in the community that they were aware of. I signed the administrative reports to you recommending authorizing the PACE providers to do business in town. And I can tell you that when I see this and I see the media recanting and the hardship stories, I regret having done that. We thought we were creating an environment under which solar programs could be done without hardship, with offsetting lower energy costs that might partially or fully equalize the tax increases going on the tax rolls. We did not, in making that recommendation to you, anticipate that elderly and police officers and other folks around town would be put in a hardship condition as a result of our acquiescence. So it is the staff's recommendation that we join the Association of Realtors, Chamber of Commerce, Kern Tax, and County Board of Supervisors in terminating the PACE program. Staff does not believe that it is in the public interest to continue to allow these costs to be placed on the tax rolls. I assume questions would be better after the public hearing, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tandy. At this time, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition? If you'd like to speak in opposition, would you just raise your hand so we can get some idea of the number of you who want to speak and opposition to staff's recommendation? Let me make that very clear. So this is in opposition to what staff has recommended. How many of you would like to speak in opposition to staff's recommendation? Just raise your hand so we get some idea. So if you look around, you can see the people that we have, and we have 15 minutes for this. So you can just pace yourself. Please come to the microphone, identify yourself, and proceed. So if you can just line up on this side by staff, right over here. We'll start with you, and then if you just line up on this side, just try to maybe get out of the way of people. Welcome, and here we go with our 15 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. My name is James Hamill. I'm a managing director with the California Statewide Communities Development Authority. We are one of the joint powers authorities that administers the California First program, which you're participating in and part of the discussion tonight. You became a member to our Joint Powers Authority in 1997. We've had a long-standing history here with the City of Bakersfield in doing multiple financings, and this is an added program that our board has worked on over the years since 2010 to implement. One of the things I want to put forth is, from our board's perspective, we take consumer protections very seriously. We have put stringent consumer protection policies in place, and we'll continue to do that. What we ask tonight is for the city to really look at this from a perspective of looking at PACE as something that can help the city. Is it a perfect program right now? No. Can we work on it to make it better? Yes, and we'd like to work with you to do that going forward. So we appreciate your time, and the opportunity will be available for questions later. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Please identify yourself and proceed.
Good evening. Laura Booker, thank you. You know, I called Jordan Kaufman's office today and asked them, was it an undue burden to add this cost onto the property tax bill? And I was told, not really. There'll be more phone calls because some people who wrapped their property tax in the mortgage didn't realize their payment was going to go up, and the people who pay their property taxes themselves, as I do, some of them didn't know what they were doing when they signed an agreement. And it is incumbent upon each of us to know exactly what we're doing financially, and no one's responsible but ourselves. I'll skip the part why I profited on many levels from this program. I benefited greatly for my family, and I really urge you to don't throw out the baby with the bathwater, because these contractors are family businesses, many from a long time. They have, striven, is that a word, to provide jobs and to maintain a business. It's tough keeping a business. And with all due respect to our fine realtors in this town, you already have to sign this much papers to buy a home. What's a little more? I don't know. Everybody has to pay off their liens to sell their home. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello. My name is Diana Chris, and I have lived in Bakersfield for 22 years, and I live in Ward 6. I've chose to use Hero Refinance to replace a 22-year-old central AC. It has added value to my property, and if I did sell it, whoever buys it will have 20 years without having to worry about replacing the AC or furnace. I know that I would have to pay off Hero to sell my home, and I would just include it in the cost of the home. Just like anything people do to make their homes better, people should have this option, especially in the summer heat we live in Bakersfield. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Please identify yourself and go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Diane Swan. I used the PACE program to replace a 20-year-old roof that I'd been patching over and over for the past 3 years. I'm on Social Security, and I could not have done this otherwise. I think a lot of other seniors are in the same boat. I was able to use the equity I have in my home to qualify for this program. The process was very informative, and it was explained to me that Hero is paid for on the property tax bill. It does not concern me at all that I have to pay off that lien when I sell my property. I knew that going in, and I have the equity in my home. This is something that has improved the value of my property commensurate with the expense of my roof. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Please identify yourself.
Hello, my name is Denise Padilla. I used PACE to replace the 34-year-old windows. I couldn't even close or lock them. Now I have double pane efficient windows. They also lock, which makes me feel safer. I also have a very low monthly payment. The representative from Sears explained how Hero works, then the representative from Hero confirmed what I was told. If you sell your property to pay off Hero, just like any other form of financing, like HELOC or a second mortgage, I think the idea that people are somehow stuck in their home is being put into their heads. I knew that what I was getting into, and I'm asking you to support the opportunity to use this program that gave a better interest rate for me and other in my position. It was my choice. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. Please identify yourself.
How you doing? My name is Eddie Casillas. I'm here in support of the HERO program. I had a 20-year-old unit. My bills for PG&E were upwards over $400 a month. Because of the HERO program, which make it easy for me to get a $12,000 loan to be able to get this AC unit, the bill did drop drastically. I've learned that it always comes down to money. I kind of wonder why the realtors of anybody are looking out for me. There's other things that we can put liens on. I don't see them fighting to get rid of those. Like I said, I support this program. Should it need fixes, I'm pretty sure, but I'd rather have it fixed than have it thrown away. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. Please identify yourself.
Good evening. My name is Amalia Perez. I'm a native from Bakersfield, California. I used the PACE program to have my roof renovated. I bought my home about 5 years ago, and it was built in 1962. I replaced the original roof. I had been patching the roof. There were many leaks. It was severely leaking. There's no way that I would have been able to afford this being a single mother. And so I actually attended a home and garden show and retrieved information about the HERO program through PACE, through the BSW roofing company at the home garden show. And I looked into it, and I knew what I was getting myself into. And I was able to have a new roof placed and provide a new roof over my family and myself. And it's benefited me greatly. And I also contacted local real estate agents and looked into it further about in case in the future if I'd like to sell my home, I'm able to do so. I'm able to transfer that loan or pay it off, or I can transfer it over. I've looked into that, and it's a great benefit. And I hope that the HERO program's not done away with, because it helps us greatly, especially being a homeowner. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. Next speaker, please. Welcome.
Welcome. My name is Marcus Bill. I'm the owner of Interfaith Electric and Solar. I'm kind of neutral on this. I use the PACE program probably for 20% of my loans. We also do regular commercial loans that do the same exact thing. They put a lien on the house. Okay? Same exact thing. Okay? This is a good program that needs to be improved. Like, for example, solar makes you money. You become your own utility company, so you don't have to pay the high rates. Okay? That's one of the benefits. If you can't afford air conditioner, okay? I go to people's houses, they own swamp coolers, they don't know about the PACE program. I tell them about it. They've been miserable for God knows how long. And all of a sudden they got a way to get an air conditioning system, okay? Some of the things probably need to be taken away from them. I don't see doors, windows, and stuff like that. But solar makes you money. And I'm not saying that to just promote my business, okay? But some of the things just need to be improved. But it's a good program. Don't get rid of it. Improve it. Just like Obamacare. Don't get rid of it. Improve it. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Beal. Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Don Lanier. I run a company called Northwest Exteriors, and we're a PACE provider. I'm also a customer of PACE twice, and I'm currently selling one of my homes that has PACE on. It has no problem at all to sell the home with the PACE program. One thing that I'd like to address is the jobs that is being created. It's created a ton of jobs for our company. We went from 8 to 30 in the short time that PACE has been here, and it's very, very important for our community because we've lost enough jobs with during the oil field crisis. We can't afford any more. There are a lot of people out there that benefit from PACE that maybe can't get a traditional loan. They don't have the means monetarily or in the bank to provide their upgrades. Couple scenarios. One, we live in Bakersfield, summer, 108 degrees. If an elderly person or somebody with young kids does not have an air conditioning that works, it's very dangerous, and they're suffering in their homes. The PACE programs can actually help these people get their air conditionings. Another scenario is the roofing. If you have wood shingles on your roof, what a lot of people do still here in town, they will not be insurable. And if they can't insure their home, what's going to happen? If they don't have the money to replace their home, what's going to happen? They can't get a bank to loan their house loan money on their homes because of maybe some medical issues drop their credit below what they can, but they have enough equity in the home. They can provide that, insure their home, and create safety and security for their family. This is not the only choice that we have in this community to provide financing, but it is a great choice for some, not for all. I ask you, please keep this program. It's good for the community. It's great for job creation, and it's very valuable financing for many, many people in your district. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Madam Mayor, Council, my name is Brian McCarty. I'm the Kern County Account Manager for the HERO program for the last 2.5 years. I'm a local resident. I have seen this program work. You voted it in for the right reasons 3 years ago. I actually came before this council then and asked you to vote for it. Thank you for doing it. On behalf of all the homeowners that have been able to utilize it and do energy efficiency upgrades by their choice as an option, I thank you for them. This program is a choice. It is not for everyone. It is just like options that are out there for homeowners, Wells Fargo, Kern Schools Credit Union. If someone does a second mortgage or a HELOC, that has to be paid off at time of sale as well. The disclosures that we do our verification calls. The homeowners understand it's on the property tax bill. They understand that in the event of a refinance or sale, they might have to pay that off. And this is the middle class we're talking about. This is not low income, low credit, predatory lending on seniors. The stuff that has been going on in the media is completely out of control. The vast, vast majority of people that have used this program are middle class folks. And the middle class has taken a beating the last couple of years here in Bakersfield. The oil industry collapsed. So some families are credit challenged. So we're going to take away a program as an option in 110-degree heat. We've got a middle class family with 3 kids, and they don't have 45 days to get a HELOC. They got to get an air conditioner for their family. And in the winter with the roofs, you got black mold with leaks. I've been doing this for 15 years, folks. I've been in over 4,000 homes. I've seen the problems up close and personal. And this program has been a godsend. And the men and women that I work with at Renovate America and all the PACE programs, I'm proud of them. We've done good work here. And the contractors that we work with, vast majority of them, again, are local family-owned businesses. Been here a long time. They would not be offering this option to your constituents if it was going to hurt them. I urge you to keep this program. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. McCarty. Welcome. Please introduce yourself. And we're down to 56.
I see the time. I just wanted to make sure we used all of our time. I just wanted to say something. I didn't know about this issue until a realtor, a friend of mine, told me that they were opposed to this program being ended and that we should get involved. And the reason I wanted to say that because our city manager, which typically I'm in support of the city staff positions on things most of the time, but he had mentioned that the Board of Realtors is leading this, and I just wanted to make it be known that all realtors are not in support of ending the program. A lot of folks make their livelihood and they're afraid to speak out. And they come to those of us that normally speak before the body and ask us to give voice to them. And again, I want to say again, and you hear most of the people that spoke are private property owners that spoke in support. This is, to me, again, a private property issue. Property owners should have the right to use this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. Wow. Look at that, we did it. So congratulations, thank you all for staying to the time. And now, is there anybody who wishes to speak in favor of staff's recommendation? How many of you would like to speak in favor? Okay, look around, you see about how many people we have, so you can pace yourself with our 15 minutes. If you would like to line up on this side, that will help us. So first speaker, go ahead and come up to the podium, and the rest of you, if you can just line up on the side, please. Oh, okay, we have been asked, I think we need a little health break just for 2 minutes, and so we'll just hold for a minute until Councilmember Sullivan is able to return. So other than people standing in this line, let's just make sure that nobody's standing in the back, please. And thank you all for indulging us. We have limited facilities back here, so we're all standing in line. But thank you, and please introduce yourself. Go ahead, and we have 15 minutes for this whole group.
Hi, my name is Sherry Anthus, and I'm from the Bakersfield Association of Realtors. Mayor, council members, and staff, thank you for going through this again with us. First of all, obviously, we are here in support of staff's recommendation, but I want to clear up a few inaccuracies before I get into the meat of my comments. The Bakersfield Association, the California Association, and the National Association of Realtors did not commit our time, our resources, and our energy to fight against PACE because we don't want to learn something new. We didn't do it because it adds another layer to a real estate transaction. Guess what? We are not opposed to home improvements or even energy upgrades. We love new roofs and paint and windows and pools. We love that. Landscaping, it makes our job easier. So those are some claims that have been made against us that just don't make sense. I'm not here to address Hero, Y-Green, California First, or any of the other PACE providers that have been offering the financing to our community. I am also not going to malign or impugn any of our local contractors who have built a business around this product. I do want to say that 47% of the contractors are not local, and that's important for you to understand. We are here for the exact same reason that we started this conversation months ago. The property assessed clean energy program is a deeply flawed policy. It was a very good idea, gone really bad. Homeowners are being hurt. Our local housing market is being impacted. And I truly appreciate all of the comments by the previous speakers, but I didn't hear any of them say they had tried to refinance or sell their home. So let's talk about those options. PACE may be an option, but it is an option that if you exercise it, it robs you of your opportunity to refinance, to sell, or possibly even keep your home. So how do we address these flaws? It's important for us all to understand we cannot do it at this level. This happened at the legislation level, it happened at the state level, and that is where the correction has to take place. It's not something we can fix. So, in order for the Association of Realtors, locally, statewide, and nationally, to embrace this program, and if it comes back, these are some things that we would like to see. We would like to see an outside oversight agency, not one that we fund locally, but an agency that ensures what we are currently seeing through the lack of oversight, misrepresentation of the benefits of the program, inflated interest rates, and administrative fees that can double the cost of the improvement for payoff. Dishonest contractors, and I'm not talking about our people. I am talking about the predators who have the freedom within this system to take advantage of homeowners. And they are overcharging for upgrades. They are charging $16,000 for an AC system that should cost $6,000. We also want a third-party neutral evaluation so that when the appraisal comes in, it would allow for impartial verification of the established value by a source that has no vested interest in the outcome or any financial interest in the actual appraised value. so that when a property is going to be encumbered at 100% of its value, there's no margin for error. And if you flaw with an automated system, 5 to 10% on either side, you have now created a negative equity position for that homeowner. We also believe it's very important that homeowners be qualified, that it's not just based on a credit score, but it's for a review of their income, their debt, their current financial situation, and that they be required to show proof that they have the ability to repay the increased payments. And our last one, and this is non-negotiable for us, it can no longer be a super lien. It needs to come off of the tax rolls. It should not be it should be subordinate to any present mortgages or liens that were already on the property. We believe our tax rolls should be sanctioned for the public good, not for homeowners' improvements on their own personal property. And we also do not believe that our tax collector should be a loan servicer or a debt collector when these liens go bad. So I'm going to ask you a question. When we started this conversation, and you were told that PACE was a super lien, how many of you understood that? How many of you could have articulated to someone else what a super lien actually was? Or how many of you felt the need to make a phone call and ask someone to just sort of educate you on what a super lien, a priority lien, a superior lien really means? And when you decided you needed to ask questions, who did you think to call? A house painter? A roofer? A solar contractor? Of course not. You sought the counsel of someone that could inform you and educate you on the impact of a super lien on your home, or for you guys in making this decision. And yet we expect our homeowners to be educated by these people. And they're good people within their field, but they are not the source of educating a homeowner on a super lien that's going to encumber their property. There are other options. This is not the only source, but it is the only source that if you put a PACE lien on your property, you are jeopardizing other options you might have been able to exercise, refis, or selling your home. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Please identify yourself.
Hi, my name is Valerie Slater. I'm 57 years old. I have a PACE loan on a paid-off house. Nothing that the girl sold me was the truth. There was nothing that was the truth. I now have 16 panels on my house, an inverter box that doesn't work. I'm facing a $5,000 property tax bill, and it doesn't work. It's a terrible thing. I think we should get rid of it. The loan documents that I was given, I wasn't even given until a year after it was installed. I'm sorry. You know what? This whole thing has made me sick. I've got an ulcer over it. Every day I wake up and I'm depressed. I was in a paid-off house. I was, doing well until this woman knocked on my door. And, I blame not only PACE, but I blame the company that she's with. They were just very untruthful about everything. Then there was no help for the whole year. I'd call when the thing wouldn't work. They wouldn't come out. I don't know. I just think it's a terrible, bad thing. I wouldn't want it to happen to anybody else that way.
Thank you, Ms. Slater. Welcome. Please identify yourself and go ahead.
Honorable Mayor, City Council members, my name is Jean Radzik. I'm here as a Realtor member of our community. Our ask this evening is very simple. We're asking you within your capacity as City Council members, as Mr. Tandy has already stated, to rescind the authority to have these PACE liens put on the properties. You do not have the ability to change the law. You do not have the ability to modify that. You have the ability, as you did when it was first approved, you approved it. You now have the authority to remove it. That is what we're asking for. One of the other speakers talked about having a lien on the property and that he puts liens on different properties. But what he puts on the commercial properties are not super liens. They do not take precedence over any kind of a mortgage. Therein lies the issue. This is on the property tax roll, and we do have issues with this. I would tell you that, as Mr. Tandy has already articulated, I don't need to repeat what he has said, but the consumer protections from the bill we've been tracking at the state level, SB 242, all the consumer protection issues that we're worried about have in fact been removed. So that a watered-down version is still winding its way through the system, but it is not going to protect the consumers over what our concerns are. We do look at private property rights. That's our biggest role as a Realtor member of this community. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Robin Rossi. I'm a licensed loan officer with Summit Financial Services. I'm not going to go back over the points that have already been spoken about. What I'm going to share with you is an experience as a loan officer with the PACE program. We cannot put a loan on a property that has this program. We have to have that paid off. They will not allow us to transfer this. We used to be able to resubordinate them. There were certain investors that would allow us to do that. They have since recanted that. We cannot subordinate these. We cannot refinance. We cannot work with them on a purchase. I have a borrower who, in the midst of all of this, came in. I did his loan. We were well within his ratios. I am licensed under the SAFE Act, the NMLS, and the California Department of Real Estate. We have to abide by the guidelines. He was in a perfect loan, put a PACE program on his home, got his tax bill, went up $900 a month. That's a 31% increase on his house payment. He is now upside down and out of his ratios. He does not qualify. They never asked for pay stubs, they never verified income, and they never asked for tax returns. So he was given a loan that he didn't qualify to begin with. There's other means to put energy efficient windows and air conditioners on these homes. We do not need to use the PACE program to put these services in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Please introduce yourself. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Melissa Dominguez. I am a Bakersfield resident homeowner, and we got the HERO program a few years ago. I was very educated and knew exactly what I was doing, read all my documents, and I think I was being a very good consumer. The gentleman that came and sold me my windows and a representative of HERO sat in my kitchen and told me that I would be able to refinance this loan when I was ready to do so. Well, I am ready to do so. I am with Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo refuses to refinance my loan because of the HERO program. They won't even touch it. So now I'm kind of stuck. I'm in a better position where I can refinance and bundle the whole thing, and nobody will touch it. So that is my complaint here today, and I think that it needs to be stopped, and it's very new, so a lot of people are going to start coming across these problems in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I've got a couple documents here that I think you'll be interested in. A home, 1,645 square feet. They have an air conditioner estimate.
Mr. Busby, would you say your name, please?
What's that?
Would you say your name, please?
John Busby. I'm
Thank
sorry.
you.
Anyways, estimate is $23,010 for a 4-ton AC unit. Another property that they had a tankless water heater installed, typically $2,000, $3,000 total, $11,010. Had a client that we had the property listed at $279,000, could not sell it, and he's probably going to be in foreclosure. You won't see foreclosure on a PACE loan. You'll see it on the loan itself. Death, divorce, relocation, loss of job, or illness will cause someone to get rid of their home. Let's don't hurt this public. Let's help them out. Maybe create a participation agreement with the city for certain ages. There's ways of making it work for the contractors. These contractors are good. These contractors, not good. I know a lot of these guys out here, and they're solid. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Go, members of the council. Nick Ortiz representing the chamber. I'll try to be brief. I just want to say there's a lot of debate tonight, a number of issues. I think city staff and the council are doing a great job handling that. We are opposed, as Mr. Tandy said, to allowing PACE to continue in Bakersfield. I think fundamentally, as everyone has said, we have contractors, we have the HERO program who are members of the chamber, but it is the fundamentals of this super lien status which causes us to have concern. The other issue is just from a good governance standpoint. I mean, there's a fund at the state level that makes mortgage companies whole that taxpayers pay into. We don't think that's the right way to operate. And also, the county treasurer tax collector basically has to be the subsidized loan servicer for these PACE loans. That's a way that I think that we have to look at it from good government and really take a step back. Our board and our members think that some type of program like this should continue, but really has to be sent back to Sacramento to put in some of these protections and ensure that the subordination and the super lien status is not an issue going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Turnipseed?
Madam Mayor, member of the council, Mike Turnipseed. I have 25 seconds, so I will be short. First of all, this is virtually the only loan in the world that uses undocumented property values with no income verification. There is no warning to the borrowers not to put it in their impound account, because impound accounts, you become 90 days late and you're foreclosable. Property taxes have a 5-year forgiveness rate for making it up if something happens, an illness or something. And thirdly, as was mentioned earlier, all the promises for reforms were gutted out of the bill last week, 242, so there are no reforms. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We've come to the end of this 15-minute period. Thank you, all of you who have come forward. We appreciate that. And now there's an opportunity for 5 minutes to rebut. So if there is anybody who would like to rebut in opposition to staff's recommendation, there's 5 minutes total. And if you would like to rebut, how many of you are planning to speak would like to speak during this period? Raise your hand. Okay, thank you very much.
Mayor, can I know that your assistant city manager had set up a PowerPoint here. I don't know which one it is.
Okay, let's get that set up before we start the clock.
Okay. And do I just use here? Mayor Go, Dustin Rylick of Renovate America's HERO program. I'm going to try to make this as short as possible because of the fact that I have actually put this information into your packet as well as a PowerPoint that's in your packet. I also have our disclosure forms so that you can actually see on hard cards. That's in the left side of your brochure in that packet as well, so that you can see all of the disclosures, all of the things that homeowners have to initial next to. But let's talk about lien priority for a second. PACE assessments are a voluntary financing option that are no different than a HELOC, and it's primarily for emergency replacement. About 65 to 70% of scenarios are in time of need. Someone's HVAC goes out on them, their roof, all of these different repairs that you've heard about from real homeowners here that wanted to talk about this, and we lined up as few as possible because we wanted to make that 15 minutes for you. Obviously, it's on the tax bill, but it's no different than the Mello-Roos tax, a garbage collection tax, the vector control, all of those different things that are on the tax bill. They don't cause foreclosures, and neither do we. Scenarios, as the realtor said, in life actually cause these things, divorce and loss of job and those type of scenarios. I don't want to read through all of this because I'll waste most of our time, but what I do want to say is that many of the things that we were talking about are absolutely false about PACE accelerating foreclosures, and there's only been 3 foreclosures in all of Bakersfield out of our program, and we've had 1,666 assessments as of today here in the city of Bakersfield. And there's been 3 foreclosures. None of them have been from a PACE provider, and none of them have been a cause of a PACE provider like ourselves. There was a $10 million loss reserve that was put in place by the California State Legislature and through CATFA. That was done in 2013, and in 2014, that was a cause that caused this whole entire body to move forward with that first lien position, and it was something that was debated very, very thoroughly, as Councilman Weir and Councilman Rivera can remember, at the Budget and Finance Committee with 6 different sessions on it back in the day. And I know that your assistant city manager and your assistant council can actually attest to that. We went through this thoroughly. We vetted this thoroughly to make sure that this was a good program for your constituents. Disclosures are a big thing. The know before you owe format that was put into place in AB 2693 last year is key, and all of the financing things are right in front of you. All the documents that you've seen and all of the initials that homeowners have to do are very clear. One of the things that I want to illustrate to you that's very important is there's only been 119 homeowners that have actually had a sale or their house has hit the market with PACE, with the HERO program. And 71% of those have sold during that process, sold or are in the process of being under contract. So this is not a major issue. Things fall out of escrow for many different reasons: divorce, change of heart, all kinds of different reasons. And these are those examples right here. And as you'll see, FHA and VA is a very large percentage of your community, as stated by Mr. Crabtree. It's close to 45% of your marketplace, and the FHA and VA in the past have endorsed PACE assessments being on the property tax bill. So going beyond that, one of the things that I wanted to address is the refusal to identify property owners in those 47 instances doesn't allow us much transparency in being able to help your constituents. We really want the ability to be able to help those constituents. And there's no way to verify those claims of record for any of these different homeowners to be assisted. Claims include situations that have nothing to do with PACE, like they were unable to sell, or they got a divorce, or they lost their job. Those things don't occur. Happy PACE homeowners share their names with us every single day. Thank you very much. And please keep PACE available as an option for your homeowners. Don't make those people that got retrained and retooled into this industry from oil and gas have to lose their jobs again. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Real quickly, James Hamill, again, Managing Director with the California Statewide Communities Development Authority. I just want to make 2 observations. One, there's been a lot of commentary on SB 242 being gutted and watered down. The main reason, number one, is that we are working with the senator with the consumer lawyers groups to actually increase the protections within that. So it's been gutted until we can make those protections and put those back in, number one. Number two, what I would like to offer as the oversight agency is the ability to work with Mr. Tandy and whatever staff there is to put provisions in place to protect your constituents. We are putting together an advisory board of multiple cities and counties across the state to come to the local level and work on some of the things that you've heard about tonight. So I'm offering that to you from our perspective. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And now, the rebuttal from the other side. How many of you would like to speak at this point? Okay, please come forward. You have 5 minutes. We'll just wait a minute for them to go ahead and clear out so they're not interfering. Thank you. Go ahead and introduce yourself, please, again.
Robin Rossi with Summit Financial Services, licensed loan officer. I would like to bring to the attention of council that we keep talking about this being like a HELOC. It is not the same as a HELOC. A HELOC is a lien that is in second position. So when we refinance a home or we sell it, and when we go to put those in place, we qualify the borrower and the property. We get a full appraisal. We look at the loan to value. It has to make sense. When we have these other PACE liens being put in place in a super lien position, we can't transfer them. We can't do any purchase loans on them. We can't refinance them. There's no appraiser going out and appraising these homes. When we do renovation loans under the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac programs that are out there, we go out and we do an appraisal based on an as completed. They look at the plans, they look at the improvements being made. It still has to fit in the guidelines, in the loan to value, so that our homeowners are not upside down. And we also verify income. What happens if somebody loses their overtime? Great point that we're in the middle of an oil recession. What happens if you're qualifying somebody for a PACE loan and all you're looking at, if you look at that at all, is a pay stub with a ginormous gross or net income on there? How much of that is overtime? How much of that is regular pay? We're licensed under the SAFE Act. The SAFE Act of 2008 was put into place to protect homeowners against fraud. We are here, and I am not saying that there's fraud being committed. I'm saying there's not enough protection in place for these consumers. You have to educate consumers, give them the education and the tools so they can make a well-informed decision. Anything that's too good isn't so and doesn't work, and that is what scares me the most about this program. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi. I just want to point out something in regards to value, and I appreciate the fact that the homeowners who have done upgrades to their home think that those can be negotiated or transferred. If your home is worth $250,000, it includes your roof. So if you have an additional $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 on your taxes as a PACE lien, you don't have extra value to pay that off. And I think it's kind of misunderstood. I also want to point out something that wasn't mentioned before in regards to understanding how these liens are qualified. You are aware, because we've given you information, but I think it needs to be said, 59 properties were currently in tax default. They were already behind on their property taxes, and yet they qualified for PACE liens. So not only were those homeowners already in danger of losing their homes because they couldn't make their property tax bills, now they have thousands and actually tens of thousands of dollars added to those tax bills that were already in default. So I think, again, I want to point out, I hear the emotion, I hear the stress, I get it, because we are dealing with homeowners who are writing checks to close properties and canceling the transaction on their purchase property because they have no equity to move forward. I deal with the police officer who sold her home, who thought she bought an AC for $6,000, turned out it was $16,000 to pay it off, is now a renter in Arizona because she could not buy the home she was trying to purchase. So yes, there are properties selling, and there are properties that are selling with checks being written by sellers that are upside down, and the homes they intended to purchase are no longer an option for them. So again, if we could fix it here, we would fix it here. It's flawed. It was flawed in conception. It needs to go back to its originator. Let them fix it. Let them figure out how to pull out these open windows that predatory people can walk through, and when they bring it back to us and it looks different and it is not a superior lien, then we can talk. Thank you.
Ms. Anthis, for the record, would you say your name, please?
Sherry Anthis from Bakersfield Association. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Judy Camp, Mayor and council members. I'm a realtor with the Bakersfield Association of Realtors, but I'm here to talk to you real quickly because I'm also a homeowner and I have the HERO program on my home. My husband and I got it a couple years ago, and the contractor was not the one who disclosed it improperly. He didn't know. He said, go out and shop some loans, see what you get, and we were introduced to the PACE program. We'd been getting phone calls. We talked to them, and it was over the phone. They sent us things, and today I pulled out our contract, and nowhere on there did they disclose to us that this would be in first position. And as a realtor, I've learned this since then, but it's too late now. We've come across a little hardship because we've lost my mother, and some things have happened that we've had to put our cash out for, and I want to go and take money out of our house so we can catch up a little bit, do some home improvements, and I can't get it. I can't do it. And
Ms. Camp, we've come to the end of this period.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you all of you who have commented. At this time, I will close the public hearing and return it to council for comment and action. Councilmember Parlier.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I've read through the reams of paperwork, reviewed the supervisor's video, listened to very heartfelt testimony, and honestly, I'm looking forward to tonight's vote like a root canal. I think it's it's a very difficult position to be in. I'm not sure how my colleagues, what the will of council is going to be, how we're going to split this baby, but somebody's going to end up short tonight, unfortunately. But I feel the strongest position is really staff's position. I feel their argument really boils down the topic, and I support their position. No other comments. Thank you.
Councilmember Freeman.
Thank you, Mayor Go. Well, most of you know I am a contractor, California general contractor. I spend most of my life hiring contractors to build projects, so I'm very much pro-contractor, and I think we have a great set of contractors in this city, and I'm very much pro-jobs. So I would like to see the program fixed and preserve as many jobs as we can. But I'm also a realtor with an active license, and I've managed a lot of real estate people and worked with realtors. I'd kind of like to see us have a thriving realtor industry. And I've managed a mortgage company for a decade. So I think I know everything about underwriting mortgages and prudent lending. And I have really made an effort to read all the materials, all the talking points, and there's good ones on both sides. And in a county or a region that is suffering from unemployment, I would really like us to find a way to preserve jobs here. But I do believe in prudent lending, and there are a number of flaws that have been stated with the lending program. This is just a home improvement loan program. I mean, we can say it's a tax lien. It's a home improvement loan program, with an interest rate and a payment. Normally, you would just go to a lender. I called a bunch up to find out this money available for second trustees for home improvements. Then, yeah, right in this town, many lenders offer it. Kern Federal, just call one up. And I think the realtors are simply saying, we want normal underwriting standards. The same standards you'd get at Kern Federal. A reasonable loan to value, someone checks the value of the home, that they actually check your income, that you can make the payment. Because if you have a program, and we had a mortgage meltdown a few years ago because people quit checking income and verifying that a person could actually make the payment. The program, currently the PACE program, doesn't do that. So there's some really big flaws. I'd like to see those corrected. I'm encouraged, because I've talked a lot with the PACE people, that there's legislation that isn't finalized, and I've heard from both sides tonight, that hopefully will fix these problems and can make it normal underwriting. Normal underwriting would not give you first position when you should be in second or third. When you took that first trust deed out and mortgage on your home, you made a promise to that lender that you would never put anything underneath it, other than the power of the state, puts a school bond. I mean, that's public benefit. Puts a big sewer, puts a big road, but not that you'd use it for your private stuff. When we made loans at Castle and Cook Mortgage, we expected people to honor that promise. So the proper, just normal underwriting standards is, I think, all the realtors are asking for, all I'd want to see. I don't see any reason why PACE can't do this. Their source of money, they're making plenty of money on the interest rate they're making, 5, 6, 7, 8%, probably very normal if you're in a second trust deed. These should not be for people with bad credit who are more likely to default. That should not charge them a higher interest rate. But I think just normal underwriting standards, and I don't know why we couldn't continue to have a thriving home improvement market. So those are my concerns. I would really like to see this legislation done right and completed, because I do agree it's very hard for us to customize a program just for Bakersfield. So those are my comments for now.
Thank you, Councilmember Freeman. Councilmember Sullivan.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen. Well, seldom is our council chamber this full. And there are many faces in the audience that I've known for years. Good people. I was a realtor for years. I loved it. I can remember when I first heard the word fiduciary. And as I read the definition and read what it meant, and certainly as time went on, I appreciated that word even more. So there are just our most valuable groups that are very concerned about their clients and about what is being done to many of their clients. And groups that I think we all value, certainly we value and certainly highly respect. And certainly the realtors, they work with the public, they work with the people. And I just, for the most part, I know that they have their heart in the right place, and they care about their clients, they care about the community. And I appreciated the fact that that a number of months ago, a number of them started bringing to the city's attention just what was happening, just the loans, all of the comments and stories that have been relayed tonight. They're all very important. There's a lot of, both sides have passionate stories. Both sides have very, very important points of view. It was brought out that I think, and I was just writing things down, but 2,700 transactions. That is good and it's not good. 2,700 transactions because of this program. Of course, every term, every time the council members reevaluate our council goals, it's economy, it's jobs. That's part of our responsibility. So there are different perspectives on this issue. And I wish I had a tape recorder. Even John mentioned it, John Busby at the end of his comments, that wish it could be fixed, wish it could be helped. Actually, it was brought out that it's an option. And yes, super liens, all of these things are real. And it was also brought out that how many years ago was it, Alan, that we supported this program?
I think it started in 2010, the more active of the agencies, 2014 and 2015.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we had our hearts in the right place. We were wanting it. We knew it was an option, and the more options that are available, the better. So we knew at the time it was an option, and it's only after something is in place for a while if we realize it's something good or something not as good as we wanted it to be. I've worked on something today that I would like to present to the council. And I mean, how wonderful it would be if this could end up being win-win. Certainly the realtors know what needs to be fixed and know the dangers that have come because of this. But the fellow down in the front row, he said that he would want to help fix it. And wouldn't that be wonderful if we didn't have to completely eliminate something that I'm sure, I think there has been more harm, certainly more harm than good. I think that we're all aware of that, and we don't want that to continue. But there's something I would like to present for our council to consider. Okay, I would like to make a motion to halt future PACE loans in the city of Bakersfield for 60 days to provide city staff time to write a participatory agreement that incorporates additional oversight and restrictions consistent with improvements anticipated by state and federal law. City staff will draft this agreement to be brought back before the council for approval. So it's still going to be our responsibility, and we're going to care just as much as we do tonight, and we're going to want just as much tonight to do the right thing. But at least it will give an opportunity to, Sherry was very, you ladies, you guys are informed, very informed, and didn't think that it could be fixed on a local level. Believe me, we were listening to every comment, every point. So maybe it can be, maybe it cannot be. But at least it would give us a 60-day opportunity to keep the good and to keep the good. Okay, if approved by the council after the agreement has been worked on and made as good as it can be, after the 60-day period, PACE would be reinstated, and those providers that agree to the city's terms as stated in the agreement. And I would think that certainly one of the things would be, of course, it needs more oversight, and maybe who knows what we would or could come up with. Haven't had a chance to talk to staff about this, so I'm sure they're wondering. But wouldn't it be wonderful? It was mentioned by someone that most of these loans are from out of town. I think 60%, something like that. So perhaps part of the agreement could be that the contractors would have to sign that they would be local contractors. And certainly if there would be a group that could provide the oversight that these loans needed. Now, to begin with, I mentioned, wouldn't it be wonderful if it could be a win-win? But halting everything tonight to see if it's possible, working together with needed input, that they could come up with something that we could all feel convinced was safe enough for it to continue as an option. And then again, if it was not, we would be able to recognize that, but it would be giving another opportunity to give that option. So I will. I just don't think it needs to be completely ended tonight. But of course, we will need a majority vote on this, but that's what I'm proposing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Sullivan. We have some more comments. Councilmember Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mayor Go. I want to first thank both sides of the PACE debate for keeping my calendar full over the past several months. And thank you for your efforts in informing me throughout the conversation, ongoing conversation. Certainly, as the chair of the Budget and Finance Committee, I had an opportunity to hear many of the arguments that were expressed tonight, and I've certainly spent many days and evenings thinking through many aspects of this issue. I do want to state that although the Budget and Finance Committee sent the matter to council without a recommendation, it was not without questions and direction to staff, and I want to thank the staff for diligently researching our questions and providing the information that you presented in our staff report. There are several things that are true regarding PACE. One is that there are many good contractors out there who are doing honest work and are working hard to support their families, to start and continue their businesses, and who are forthright and want to do the right thing, and who believe in the PACE program. There are many examples where PACE has worked for families, and it's been a viable option. That's also been true, has been demonstrated by many people who've come up and given their testimonials, both here tonight and at the Budget and Finance Committee meeting. But it's also true that the PACE program needs work, and we've heard that from many, many people. We know that it needs work because the state legislature is considering how to improve it. We know the federal government is considering how to improve the PACE program. So the question is for us, how do we fix the program for our community? That's a question that I posed during the Budget and Finance Committee meeting, and I've been wrestling with. We've brought up the idea, as Councilwoman Sullivan has suggested this evening, of the PACE participation agreement. And certainly I'd like to explore that option. But my main concern is that there really is not a strong enough enforcement mechanism for such an agreement. And I want to ask staff if they see otherwise, or how they see an enforcement mechanism in place.
Mayor, Councilmember Gonzalez, I share the city manager's representation to you in this community that I do not see how a participation agreement will work. We do not have an enforcement team. I don't have one in the city attorney's office. I don't think the city manager has one. And even if we did, we can't be in the homes every time a PACE loan is being executed. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and I would have to add that what Councilmember Freeman was describing as a normal and customary loan standard, I'm using slightly different language, would be what staff would recommend. And why do we need to recreate that? Because it already exists. You can drive all over town to any of 20 institutions and get loans that are available through normal and customary loan standards. So we would be attempting to recreate something that's already there without an enforcement mechanism. And I see no means without entering into a new business venture for which we are not qualified to undertake that.
Okay. Thank you. Without the ability for us to find a local fix, I'll have to support the staff recommendation tonight. But I hope that the state and federal government can find a solution so that we can offer this program to our community in the future.
Thank you, Councilmember Gonzalez. Councilmember Weir.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I too would like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. This is a very sensitive matter, and it's a lot of passion behind both sides. And I think you've done a good job presenting your cases. I remember the Budget and Finance Committee meetings that we went through, and I kept blaming Willie because we couldn't get the things to stop. But staff, and Mr. Taglian in particular, kept warning us that there are things we need to be careful with and we need to check out. And until we get the answers that we need, we're not going to move forward. We shouldn't. He didn't tell us we couldn't, but he said we shouldn't move forward. And finally, we got to the position where staff was comfortable with us moving forward with the PACE program. And we recommended sending it to the council, and the council voted to approve it. No one at that time could have ever known the unintended consequences that were coming. And had we known, we would have never approved it. So, tonight, I would say to the Pace people and the contractors, whom I know have clout in Sacramento, go get this fixed. Come back to us when it's fixed. Let us have another shot at it. But tonight's not the night to do that. So I move staff's recommendation this evening. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Weir. Councilmember Rivera.
The folks up here and staff will probably find this hard to believe, but I'm actually at a loss for words. So, and quite conflicted on how to move forward. On the one hand, it seems to me a moratorium accomplishes, at least in the short term, what the realtors are asking for, and what the chamber has asked for, and what the Taxpayers Association has asked for. And it's a little disheartening for me to hear that Skinner's bill has been gutted. I haven't reviewed it. I don't know what happened or what's occurred, and I, appreciate confirmation of that moving forward. Because I think everyone up here will acknowledge that this is a program that needs fixing, and if it can't be fixed, then it doesn't belong in this community. I am inclined to support Councilmember Sullivan's motion at this point. A moratorium, if I understand it correctly, and maybe I should ask for clarification, means there will be no more PACE loans administered in the city of Bakersfield for the 60 days. Is that correct?
Yes, that's, I think that at least gives a chance, an opportunity to correct the most serious issues, yes.
Okay. Staff's telling me that there's no way to make a participatory agreement work. But then at the same time, I don't remember the gentleman's name, but he's with one of the agency administrators, said, I don't know where he is, Mr. Hamill. Hey, oh, hi, how are you? It made it seem to me that it was possible. Can I ask him some questions? Is that okay, Ms. Gennaro?
Yes,
Mayor?
certainly, go ahead.
Do you have participatory agreements with anyone else currently working with you?
Yes, we do.
Where?
City of Anaheim. We're currently working with City of Santa Barbara on one. Those are the two I know off the top of my head, but there are a couple other ones.
Okay. Did staff get an opportunity to review those particular Well, it sounds like you only have one. So did we get an opportunity to review the one in Anaheim?
Mayor, Councilman Rivera, I don't believe we reviewed the one from Anaheim. I think your question from Budget and Finance was whether or not we could execute one. And as the admin report indicates, the very nature of the agreement itself, it doesn't get rid of the super lien status. And again, when you talk about the enforcement, I don't know what Anaheim, if Anaheim has eliminated the super lien situation, but if that's the concern of the council and that's the concern of staff, the participation agreement really doesn't accomplish the purpose.
Okay. Does any activity, and perhaps this is a question for you, does any activity at the state or federal level solve that issue?
Getting rid of the super lien?
Yeah, I thought I heard someone during comments mention that was being looked at.
Mayor, Councilmember Rivera, I can tell you that it's my understanding that that bill has been gutted, and all of the protections related to loan-to-value requirements, the ability to pay, the confirmation that the property owner understand the terms of PACE, and the mortgage and PACE loan forbearances, they're no longer part of the bill. They were sent to another committee. The committee did not make any amendments to that bill, and it was sent to the Assembly floor. So to the extent there's going to be amendments, we are not aware of it as of this evening.
Okay. So it's been sent to the Assembly floor.
In its gutted form, yes.
Okay. So if I understand my time in the legislature correctly, in order for a bill to, I guess, reach concurrence, if you will, with both houses, it's got to be the same bill. So if I'm under the impression, so this left the Senate, it's been gutted in the Assembly, is what you're telling me, and we'll have to go back to the Senate, I'm assuming, if it's changed so significantly, correct?
It was gutted in committee.
On the Assembly side?
On the Assembly side, correct.
Okay.
And no amendments were added to it.
Okay. So that bill will have to go back to the Senate floor. And I potentially, does that sound like
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
I guess the 3 years I worked there was maybe worth something. Okay. I don't understand why we didn't have a copy of the participatory agreement in Anaheim, truthfully. I think that falls on, if it wasn't provided or somehow we didn't look at it, that really falls on folks here in the chambers who are really advocating for this program. You should have provided that. I would have liked to have been able to have discussed that this evening because this item's gone on for a little while. And truthfully, I think it's unfortunate that Vice Mayor Smith can't be here as well because I would have appreciated the full complement of our council being present to consider this particular item. I still believe there's value in a program that affords folks like the residents in Southeast Bakersfield an opportunity to get needed improvements that are otherwise very difficult to attain. I live in Southeast Bakersfield, but am somehow in I'm in a slightly different position, but I'll share that personally. 3 weeks ago, my AC unit actually went out. And for 5 days lived in a home that couldn't get cooler than 97 degrees, which was rather frustrating. I didn't sleep very much, and can understand what it's like to not have a functional HVAC unit on your home to keep your home cool, especially when it's 110 degrees outside. So again, in my mind, this option is something obtainable by people in a situation like that moving forward. I don't believe there's any harm in looking further into trying to fix this if we can. In the meantime, there should be a moratorium. There should be no more activity. And listen, I have full confidence in our staff, but I'd really like us to thoroughly vet. And I thought I'd asked for this in Budget and Finance, but if Anaheim made it work, well, Mr. Hamill, can you tell me, are there enforcement mechanisms in Anaheim that somehow they managed, or?
They do have enforcement provisions, but what they do look to is for us, CSEDA, to also enforce those provisions. So if a administrator, California First, is not complying, then we would have to terminate California First as an administrator under our program. So there's two mechanisms. There's an internal mechanism at Anaheim, and then an external with our agency itself.
So is that participatory agreement then only specific to California First in Anaheim? Or does it apply to other?
It applies to other providers.
It does?
Yes.
And do you as?
Places that have participatory agreements in their binder.
Do you as an agency play a role in those other, in the oversight or administration of the other programs as well?
There are a list of areas that have participatory agreements in your binder.
Well, that's great. Thank you. I have a lot of lists from everyone. I'm asking whether or not it's compatible here. That's what I'm trying to get to. So I'm trying to better understand how it works in a city like Anaheim, for example.
Yeah, I think, for Anaheim, it's unique in terms of what their needs are, and I would anticipate for here in Bakersfield, it can be, and that's what we're going through with the city of Santa Barbara right now. They have different needs than what Anaheim needs, and we are pursuing that down that avenue based upon the different needs there. So it can be tailored to the needs of the city of Bakersfield.
Okay. And in those discussions, is there a discussion related to the super lien priority status in those communities? Or, because as I understand it, that's really kind of the meat and the potatoes of the program, is that not a component of any of the conversations you're having there?
That is not a component because that's changing state law.
Okay. Okay, I don't have any further questions.
Thank you, Councilmember Rivera. Councilmember Sullivan.
Just as an additional comment, I'm sure that everybody here is hoping for this to be over tonight, very anxious for it to be over. Understandable. My motion was to stop all loans as of our vote. But yet it gives, and it's on our staff, but yet working with people that that can be helpful to see if we can come up with something that will not be that will not put the public at risk. Maybe that can be done, maybe it cannot be done. But there are jobs, there are people that, in fact, it was quite interesting. One of my favorite pastors this morning called and said that his church, hoping that I was going to vote to support, and he used the word PACE, because they had just gotten solar on their church. But that's an example. He said, we're very, very happy with it. So that is an example, and how great it would be if it could be worked out, and maybe it can't. It's going to be on our shoulders again, and we will be very, very responsible for our vote and take our vote very seriously. But to give a little bit more time to see if we can come up with that happy medium, if that's possible. I just think it could, I think, why not try? Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Sullivan. Ms. Gennaro, and then we'll come back to you, Councilmember Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to make sure that the council is aware. I know that Councilmember Sullivan has not used the M word, the moratorium word, but Councilman Rivera has. This cannot be a moratorium. A moratorium is something that is used it's used to put a temporary fix or a temporary stop, generally on land use issues. And in order to do a moratorium, it would be in a form of an ordinance, and I would have to have it on the agenda, and you would have to have first reading tonight. So we don't have that. So I interpreted Councilmember Sullivan's motion to be a motion to halt future PACE loans for 60 days for staff to draft a participation agreement that will address concerns. The way I read that is, in essence, you're really supporting staff's recommendation. You're terminating the PACE programs, and at some time in the future, you'd like staff to come back with a participation agreement. That's the only way to do it. My comment, Councilmember Sullivan, and the city manager probably, I'm hoping, will concur with this, is that 60 days doesn't give staff nearly enough time to work on a participation agreement. But if you want the loans to stop, the way to do that is to support staff's recommendation. It cannot be done by way of a moratorium.
And I would add to that unless the council instructs the staff otherwise, our cut at making this an acceptable participation agreement would be that it's not a superior lien. And perhaps the providers can answer my question tonight and shortcut a lot of work and research. Are they interested in a contract which does not afford the opportunity for a priority lien? If they are not, there's no sense delving into it.
So procedurally, Mayor Go, there is a motion on the table by Councilmember Sullivan. If that motion passes, that's how it will be interpreted, that the contracts will come to an end. If Councilmember Sullivan's motion fails, then we'll need another motion from another council member. I'm sorry, I didn't. You made the second motion? Then your motion, Councilmember Ware, my apologies, would go first because you're the last in time.
I think,
that would
didn't he make his first?
No, you were first and Councilmember Ware was second, so his motion goes first per council policy. And if his motion passes, then yours becomes moot.
Thank you, Mr. Naro. We have Councilmember Gonzalez.
Did I use the term, I don't think I used the term friendly. I think it's appropriate for mine to go first. The friendly amendment, don't we do that all the time? I didn't use that term, but I am in favor of the loans ending. My motion is to see if we can fix it, and I did put 60 days on there without consulting with staff, but I'm certainly in favor of the programs as they are now ending. I was wanting to see if with these agreements, we would be able to come up with something that would not, that could continue with that option without harm to the public.
Again, you're free to ask Councilmember Weir if you'd like to accept that as a friendly amendment.
I think that's appropriate because I want them to end, but I want that window to because then if the council is not willing, if they're not willing to hold off, if they're not willing to give this program 60 days, then I am in support of the loans stopping. But I'm hoping that something can be done to help them to be safe enough for them in some version to continue. And Alan made a very good point about the loan. So I'm not sure what it would take, if it would be possible. But I think it's appropriate for just to see if there's enough consensus from our council to work on it, to see if it's possible to come up with something in 60 days.
Thank you, Councilmember Sullivan. We have Councilmember Rivera next.
I'm confused. So, Councilmember Sullivan, have you asked whether or not someone will take an amendment to their motion?
I should have used the word friendly amendment. We do that, we do that from time to time. Or, let's see, now, did you say that I made it first, or I guess I made it first?
I would
Okay.
suggest perhaps two separate motions, that we start with Councilmember Weir's motion, which is to terminate, which is to move staff's recommendation. And then Councilmember Sullivan, if you'd like to make a second motion directing staff to look into participation agreements, perhaps you could make that as a second motion and your colleagues could vote on that.
Thank you, Mr. Naro.
Okay.
Councilmember Rivera, you still have the floor.
I would be interested in hearing Councilmember Sullivan's response.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Oh, my goodness. I was visualizing that I really do not want to not vote for terminating. If we do Councilmember Weir's first, then I would not be voting to terminate. Or can I vote to terminate and then vote to see if we can work this out in 60 days? Is that possible? Because that's what I'm wanting.
Mayor, Councilmember Sullivan, you can certainly make that motion, and it's up to your colleagues to see if they support you in that.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Councilmember Sullivan. Are you finished with this portion? And we still have Councilmember Freeman. I think, do you have a question? Go ahead.
Yes, I have a question. Mr. Tandy, as the representative of PACE, the critical question is, if we were to fashion a participation agreement, would you agree that the super priority lien is no longer a part of the program? You didn't answer that question, because I think that gets to the crux of the matter. That would be, Mr. Tandy said that's what he would recommend. I think that's what some of us feel is a critical part of any new participation agreement, that the loan goes in its proper position if it's behind a first mortgage. So I needed to know if you would agree to that, or I don't see any reason in fashioning one, because Mr. Tandy said it's already going to include that.
I mean, I'd have to talk to my counsel about that. We haven't done that before. We haven't had that request before. So I don't have the authority here tonight to answer that question, but I'd have to go back to my counsel, so.
Then, okay, I think that answers the question, and then I think we're just into the phrasing of, if you terminate the program, and then Mr. Tandy would have to wait for that answer to proceed on any sort of drafting of an attempt at a participation agreement.
Thank you, Councilmember Freeman. Councilmember Rivera.
Okay, I'm going to, for the sake of expediency here and to get the ball rolling, there are two motions. The first motion from Council, the motion first up, as I understand it, or just recently made from Councilmember Weir, is to terminate the memorandums we have, correct?
It's to support staff's recommendation, which in
To terminate.
essence is what that does, yes.
Okay, do they get terminated? I have just a procedural question. Are they technically terminated at midnight tonight, or do you have to come back to the council to kind of finalize it?
3 out of the 5 are terminated this evening. 2 out of the 5 within their separate agreements. One has 15 days and one has, I believe, 20 days. We've incorporated that into each one of the resolutions.
Okay, so that's one motion, and then if I understand Councilmember Sullivan's motion, and maybe I'll just try to friendly amend it to make it clear to me, is to then separately direct staff to explore participatory agreements, and if it's something that reveals itself to be workable in the city of Bakersfield, to come back to this council for future consideration within 60 days. Is that how you understand it, Mr. Nero?
That is how I understand it.
Okay. Then I'll
Thank you,
I'll
thank
call
you,
the-
Willie.
I'll
And-
call the question then.
Okay, Alan mentioned that it would take longer than 60 days, so I think we should also be open to that, if it would take longer.
We have a motion from
Thank you.
Councilmember Weir. Would you state your motion again, please, and then we'll vote on it. Just go ahead and state it.
I move staff's recommendation on this item.
You have a motion, please cast your votes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. And then we have a second. Oh, we would have to have another, yes, we would have to have another motion if we need another motion at this point. Is there anybody who wishes to make one?
Well, are you?
We can conclude this portion right now, but I see a blinking light. Councilmember Sullivan.
All right, I would like to make a motion to direct staff to review some of the agreements in other cities and really try to come up with something that would be acceptable to our representatives, our council members, to make available a form that could be used for the option that some have done very well with.
Thank you, Councilmember Sullivan. You have a motion. Please cast your votes. Oh, do you have a question?
Yes, I have a question.
Okay. Councilmember Weir.
I'm sorry, I did not understand that motion.
I think you get the point, don't you, Ken?
Well, I don't want to just get the point. I want to understand the motion.
Willie, would you like the opportunity to make it more clear?
Sure, because I believe in giving everyone a chance. I'd like to ask staff, I'd like to make a motion asking staff to explore the possibility of participatory agreements with the folks in the room today, and if it's possible and workable in the city of Bakersfield, to come back to this council.
May I ask a question?
Mr. Tandy.
Are you giving staff an instruction of the subject of priority lien in regard to this question? Because our starting point would be that any such agreement would not have a priority lien, and you would need to instruct us if we are to craft something that contains a priority lien?
I don't believe in going to negotiating table with items off the table. So I guess go back to the folks in the room, and if you can work something out that passes muster with this council, then so be it. It doesn't sound like that's going to happen, but let's put forth our best effort. That's the, I don't know how else to, to word it. Let's try and make it work, and if it doesn't, then it doesn't.
Councilmember Freeman.
Good job, Willie.
I'm sorry, but I have an additional question. Does this mean that staff will bring a recommendation to council to be debated again on the points and authorities of a participation agreement, or what does it mean?
Mayor, Councilmember Freeman, I think that's exactly what it means in its current format. So, again, staff's recommendation is that the motion not pass.
You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
Motion fails.
Thank you. Thank you all for your participation in this.
Thank you, council members, for your consideration, and thank you for your patience, Karen.
I know a lot of work has gone into this, so we thank all of you for speaking up. We're going to take a 10-minute break to give you the opportunity to clear the chambers and do what is necessary. We'll come back here at 8:35. Council to reconvene. What happens if everybody leaves your party and you have this fantastic presentation? Well, thank you all for hanging in here. And Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Public hearing to consider resolution adopting fees pursuant to the cost recovery system. Staff provided a blue memo transmitting additional information on this item.
Thank you. Ms. Kitchen?
Thank you, Mayor Go. This item is a request that was originally scheduled for consideration by your council on July 7th. However, it was continued today at the request of the Home Builders Association in order to allow for more time to review the fees. Since that last hearing, staff has met with the Home Builders Association on 2 occasions and had several productive discussions about what the fee increases entailed. And we believe we've come to a point where their questions have been answered. However, Nelson Smith, the finance director, and Nick Vidler and myself are all here to answer any questions that may come up this evening.
Thank you very much. At this time, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to staff's recommendation? Seeing none, is there anyone who would like to speak in support, in favor of staff's recommendation? Please come forward. Welcome. Please identify yourself and go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor Go, council members. I'm Dave Domahowski, representing the Home Builders Association of Kern County. We appreciate the staff's willingness to meet with us on a couple of occasions. They provided us a lot of data and calculations, and they addressed our questions and concerns. We did have one issue having to do with how pension expenses might factor into the formula. Mr. Smith was kind enough to give us a response to that. And so at this point, while we're not wildly supportive of any new fee or any fee increase, we do not object to the city's proposal and believe it was calculated in a proper way. However, my association did direct me to make some very general comments about the fee issue and the impacts of fees of all kinds, processing fees, exactions, mitigation measures, new building standards on the cost of new housing. Obviously, we're in the middle of a very serious housing crisis, both in terms of housing affordability and housing supply. We're simply not creating enough new housing in California to serve our population growth and formation of new households. We're not creating enough new housing in Bakersfield. Since World War II, I think the state of California has produced housing sufficient to meet projected marketing demand on a handful of years since the end of the war. This time, we're building only about 100,000 new units a year in California, where the State Department of Housing and Community Development projects that we need 200,000. And that's actually a downsizing of projected demand. Governor Schwarzenegger's director of HCD had projected a statewide need of 275,000 units per year going forward, but that was back in the early 2000s. In terms of housing affordability, I saw kind of a remarkable statistic recently that of the bottom 30% of wage earners, they are paying close to 60% of their income in housing expense. And that's really untenable and unsustainable going forward. California has given an opportunity like never before in history for people to participate in poverty and homelessness, yet we have continual sort of piling on, particularly by the state level, of new regulations that impose additional cost and time requirements on new home construction. Believe it or not, there are 130 new bills in the legislature to try and fix the housing problem. The legislature does recognize we have one, but of the 130 bills, most of them actually impose additional costs and additional regulation to the process. So there doesn't appear to be too many solutions coming from the state level. Kern County is building about 1,600 new homes a year. I think Bakersfield's share of that is well over half. But we should really be building about 3,000 new units per year in Kern County, especially considering we have 4% interest rates, which are close to historic lows. So the big concern we have is that we're losing the ability to serve the first-time and entry-level home buying market. And that affects the future of the middle class here in the Central Valley and in the state of California. I think we also need to be concerned about competition from adjoining cities in Kern County. Obviously, they operate under different fiscal circumstances, have much more limited infrastructure requirements than a full-service city like Bakersfield, but places like Shafter and Tehachapi are able to process a new home permit for substantially less than the city of Bakersfield. So I think what we'd like to do is have a longer-term conversation with the council and with your staff over ways of stimulating further housing production in the city of Bakersfield. Here's where the jobs are. We ought to have the housing here, too. Thank you very much for your consideration. I know you've had a long night, so I'll sit down. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Domachowski. Is there anybody else who would like to speak in support of staff's recommendation? Welcome. Please introduce yourself and proceed.
Scott there, Castle and Cook. Thank you, staff, for getting together with us. We did meet on 2 occasions. We got an idea of kind of where staff was coming from. Not that we liked it. Actually, this, I guess the fee increases amounted to approximately maybe $400 a home. And you may ask, well, why are you so sensitive? Well, very good reasons why. 2 years ago, the MELO requirements were enacted on the landscape ordinance to conserve water. That added a couple $1,000s to a home. This year, January 1st, we had the new Title 24 more stringent requirements to be more energy conservative. That didn't add a couple thousand, that added thousands of dollars to a home. And as Dave just mentioned, trying to get the lower price points so people can buy and get qualified, it's tougher and tougher every time the cost of a home goes up. Now you look at the MELO requirements and the Title 24 is coming down from the state. They don't look at community economics, so it hits harder here in Bakersfield where the median home price is $220,000. They're putting in those same improvements, same costs in San Jose where the median home price is $1,085,000. Huge difference. It's just a little blimp for them it's monstrous for us down here. So, anytime a city or state government, federal, is imposing, more costs on the house, we're going to be sensitive to that, especially in our industry right now that, we're not fully recovered from the recession that hit. We still have a ways to go. So again, thank you for the time to get together to review the fees.
Thank you, Mr. Thayer. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in support? Welcome, Mr. McIntosh. Please
Good
introduce
evening.
yourself.
Honorable Mayor and council members, my name is Roger McIntosh. No one likes higher fees. There's a book called A Tipping Point, and sooner or later you get to that point where all these additional costs and expenses and fees send things a different direction. We would ask the council to be aware that if you're going to raise this money and raise the fees, that revenue go to increase staff levels. I think staff is running pretty lean these days. It's difficult to get a project approved and processed. If there was more staff and it was business friendly, you would have more projects approved, more fees, more building, more sales tax revenues. That all gets generated. It all grows and grows and grows. So we would ask that, or I would ask that there be some direction and consideration and even discussion, open discussion about how to be a bit more business friendly in the city of Bakersfield, because there are builders that are leaving Bakersfield. They're going to Shafter and outlying communities because it is less fees in those communities. So if we can become more business friendly, I think that would go a long ways to generate more jobs and more revenues to the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McIntosh. Anyone else who would like to speak in support and favor of staff's recommendation? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and return it to council for comment and action. Councilmember Freeman.
Mr. McIntosh, Mr. Domahowski, it would be helpful to us if Building Industry Association could come up with, maybe there's a half a dozen things that we can do as a city to help you create more affordability. And I don't mean by, not passing the fee increase, but there are lots of other things that affect builders' bottom line. Ms. Maki, speed of processing is clearly one. Density bonuses, waivers of certain requirements, parking ratios. But if you could engage us, maybe be at a committee level, in, the six things you think we could do to help lower your cost without costing us money and stimulate the economy more and create more housing and commercial development. I think that'd be helpful to us. So I'll throw that challenge out to you so we could have a good discussion with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Freeman. Anyone else? Not? Councilmember Weir.
Thank you, Mayor. I move staff's recommendation on this item.
You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. And thank you all for enduring through the evening, the long evening, and thank you for being here to make your comments. Next item, please.
Public hearing to consider zone change number 17-0047, McIntosh and Associates, representing City Lights, LLC, and Mark Christ Investments, LLC, is proposing a zone change from a PCD, planned commercial development, to a C2 regional commercial zone on 36.41 acres located between State Route 178 and Mole View Road, approximately 1/3 mile west of Oswell Street. Protect CEQA has appealed the Planning Commission's decision regarding the proposed mitigated negative declaration. Email correspondence has been received from Betty Phillips in support of the East Hills Mall project.
Thank you. And Ms. Kitchen, would you like to comment at this point?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor Go. Madam Clerk, if you could put up the presentation. I do have just a very brief presentation, but given the late hour, it will be very brief. But as the clerk indicated, this request is a... Hold on, let me grab the mouse here. Thank you. Okay, here we are. So this request is relating to the East Hills Mall located in northeast Bakersfield. This site was first annexed to the city in the 60s, 1966, and was originally intended to be residential development. However, in 1986, it was rezoned for commercial development after a 6-year process, and that placed the existing PCD zone on the property. So you can see that here. The mall site and much of the surrounding area has commercial designations. Since that time, the mall was constructed pursuant to this original layout. And since that time, it has had varying levels of success. Over the last few years, however, it has changed hands multiple times, and portions of it have fallen into various states of disrepair. The success has diminished somewhat. And then earlier this year, the property came under new ownership, and that owner came in and met with city staff to start talking about ways to facilitate redevelopment of this vacant mall site. And the request included a zone change to change the commercial designation to facilitate that redevelopment. And upon receipt of the request for a zone change, staff conducted a diligent environmental review and research of this request and went through the process that is required by the California Environmental Quality Act and prepared a mitigated negative declaration that included various new studies related to traffic, air, biological, cultural, et cetera. And we were able to define specific mitigation measures that would ensure that redevelopment of this site wouldn't have any significant environmental impacts. So staff recommended the C2 PCD combining zone district to the Planning Commission. That combining district has the benefit of providing an assurance to the developer of what their base commercial uses can be, but it also has the added benefit of still ensuring that there's an opportunity for public involvement in the general layout of the site and to ensure that quality development is placed here in the future. So the Planning Commission concurred with staff's recommendation and is recommending that your council also approve the C2 PCD, and the applicant is in agreement with that. I would note that the combining district does have some flexibility for the applicant in that it allows for minor changes to the site plan to be approved through a ministerial administrative process by staff. So they wouldn't have to go back to hearing every single time that they wanted to make a minor adjustment to the plan. And the applicant has asked that when we take this PCD plan back to Planning Commission for approval in the next couple months, that we include a condition that lays out what those specific parameters are related to when that minor administrative approval can take place. And those conditions are noted in the staff report in detail, and staff concurs with what the applicant is asking for, and we plan to bring that forward as a condition for the PCD plan. So typically tonight, since everyone is recommending approval and the applicant's in agreement, this would be on the consent hearing, and we wouldn't need to have a public hearing on this item. However, after the Planning Commission recommended approval, staff did receive an appeal from Mr. Andrew Grundman, representing a group out of Sacramento called Protect CEQA. The appeal brought up several points related to the environmental review and requested that additional environmental review occur and that there be no action taken yet on this item. Staff provided a very detailed response to each of the points that he made in his letters, and we also continued the original Planning Commission hearing to a second hearing in order to allow for more time for that review to occur. At this point, we believe that all of the environmental questions he has raised have been addressed, and that the environmental document included in the packets tonight complies with CEQA. And we are recommending that you move forward in denying the appeal request and approving the C2 PCD zone district as recommended by the Planning Commission. With that, I would note that the applicant's CEQA attorney is here tonight as well, and he can address any specific questions that your council may have related to that environmental review. And I can also address any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kitchen. At this time, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to staff's recommendation? If so, please come forward to the mic, identify yourself, and proceed. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Andrew Grunman. I'm the Executive Director of Protect CEQA. We're here this evening to discuss the mitigated negative declaration notice of exemption for city lights at East Hills project. We'd like to thank the city staff for working with us and the opportunity to review and provide comment in this project. We are reiterating some of the comments we have submitted, both in our initial comment letter and our appeal request. Our initial comments dealt with the peculiarity of the notice of exemption mitigated negative declaration framework. We do not feel the notice of exemption under guidelines section 15302 sub B was proper and believe it should be rescinded. The exemption itself does not apply to the complete demolition and building of a new qualitative structure some 30 years after first construction. Also, the form of notice of exemption was defective and insufficient to support the application of the exemption. The mitigated negative declaration itself makes assumptions and relies on conclusions and mitigation measures that are insufficient under the California Environment Quality Act, and more reliable study is required. There is simply not enough information in the initial study to support the findings and conclusions of the city in approving this project. For example, the initial study doesn't properly detail the thresholds to which the proposed mitigation measures are keyed. Specifically, the initial study fails to provide objective measure and show with technical specificity how the enforceable mitigation measures will bring the project's impacts down below those thresholds. The city responded to our initial concerns about these problems with the negative deck in a series of comments that themselves failed to meet the substantial evidence standard required by CEQA. We would particularly like to draw the city's attention to comment response 7 and 8 of staff's response to our initial comment letter. The city has attempted to rely on an EIR prepared in the 1980s and the horizons and thresholds that existed at that time. Staff dismissed the need to conduct new, robust environmental study on the grounds that the proposed use will fall within the scope of the uses proposed at the time of the preparation of the original EIR. This is inappropriate because of changed conditions around the project site and the development of new standards and research regarding the potential impacts of particular uses. In fact, changes in the application of CEQA itself, particularly urban decay analysis, counsel us that the city should use this opportunity to properly study the potential long-term impacts of this development. This speaks to a more generalized issue, which is that the city's general and specific area plans have changed significantly since the 1980s, and the city has a literally once-in-a-generation opportunity to use the discretionary approval to ensure the project meets the objective and policies of the general plan, particularly with regards to issues surrounding greenhouse gas emissions, traffic patterns, sustainable alternative transportation options like public transit and bikeability. The council should use this opportunity to use its discretion to ensure that the project be brought in conformity with the objectives and policies of the general plan. The balance of our comments were submitted in our initial letter and our notice of appeal. We hope the city will rescind the notice of exemption and prepare a full environmental impact report to provide the council and the public full information and ensure the highest and best use of the property. Thank you for all of your work and attention to this matter. I have a copy that I wanted to submit to the clerk.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Grunman. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition to staff's recommendation? Seeing none, is there anyone who would like to speak in favor and support of staff's recommendation? Please come forward. Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you. Good evening. Stephen Atley from Park and Valleos on behalf of the owners of the property, City Lights LLC and Mark Chris Investments LLC. Madam Mayor and council members, I'd like to respond briefly to the comments that were just made, but before I do that, I want to clear up Mr. Grunman spoke about a categorical exemption from CEQA. As I understand what the Planning Commission did, they adopted a mitigated negative declaration. They did not find that this product was exempt from CEQA. The staff report describes that this product very well could have been exempt from CEQA. There are good arguments for that because this project is basically a renovation of an existing mall. The new buildings are going to be within the same footprint of the existing mall. It's going to have the same purpose, the same capacity. So there's an argument to be made that this project is simply exempt from CEQA in the first place. To their credit, the staff went beyond that in their study. They did an initial study and they analyzed a number of impacts and found that with mitigation, there would be no significant effects to the environment. The appeal letter that was filed by Protect CEQA dealt with just 3 issues. So to the extent that there were prior arguments made in previous correspondence that weren't raised in the appeal letter, those fell by the wayside. As to those 3 issues, one dealt with the notice of exemption, which I've already described. It's simply not applicable here because the Planning Commission didn't find that the project was exempt from CEQA. They did the analysis. The second and the third issue related to challenging the amount of study that the staff had done. I would submit that the staff report is rather fulsome in describing what has been done. The staff didn't simply rely on old EIRs. They did an initial study. They analyzed potential biological, cultural, traffic, design, air quality, water resources effects. With respect to traffic in particular, the city's traffic engineer accepted a letter from the owners relating to a traffic analysis that because the project is going to actually reduce square footage significantly. It's going from 492,000 square feet to 358,000 square feet. There's going to be reduced leasable square footage, and so the projected traffic will actually be less than historical levels at the mall. And so for that reason, the city engineer found that this project would be exempt from further traffic analysis. So to sum up, we are in favor of the staff's recommendation to deny the appeal and adopt the mitigated negative declaration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Etley. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in support of staff's recommendation? Welcome, Mr. McIntosh. Please reintroduce yourself.
Thank you. Roger McIntosh with McIntosh and Associates, representing City Lights LLC and Mark Chris Investments LLC. To reiterate some of the things that, and expand on what Mr. Attlee said, the negative declaration in the traffic study that we prepared was actually a comparison of the existing mall to the reduction of the square footage. And I know that there was a request for a regional study to be prepared, but as you all know, the KERNCOG, the Regional Transportation Authority, has a regional model that has been adopted by both the city and the county, and impact fees in that program are paid to mitigate regional traffic. Opening day and local traffic mitigation is really unnecessary because it's an existing mall. There's already, for 20 years or so, there was already traffic in that area. We also prepared an archaeological report, a biological report, which falls within the Metropolitan Bakersfield Habitat Conservation Program for mitigation purposes, An air quality study was done at the request, or at the approval of San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District. It did look at greenhouse gas emissions. It prepared and looked at ISR fees and looked at mitigation measures for both construction emissions as well as ongoing operational emissions. I wanted to, what I've submitted here are 3 requested conditions to be placed on this resolution this evening. And the purpose for these 3 revisions is that we went to the Planning Commission and we had a lot of discussion about C2 versus PCD. The PCD that is in place on the mall is built. It's built. In order to change that PCD plan, we would have to go back to the Planning Commission and again back to the City Council. When we renovate the mall and reconstruct it, we didn't want that hammer or that extra step to be on the project, so we requested a C2 zoning. C2 zoning would allow us to do what we needed to do according to the codes and ordinances in effect. The Planning Commission is recommending a C2 combining district with a PCD plan. So we will go back to the Planning Commission with a PCD plan for their review and approval through a public hearing process. Once that gets approved, and because we need the flexibility to respond to tenants' needs, as you bring a tenant in, one tenant will want a certain thing and they will write it into their lease. Another tenant will come along that may conflict with that tenant, so we'll have to be negotiating back and forth between tenants to bring them all together into a project that everyone is happy with. In order to do that, we would like this flexibility so that we would prefer to give the planning director a certain amount of authority to give us the ability to interchange some of the inline buildings. If we have a tenant that doesn't want to be in this location, we can move that building over here, etc. We also would like to give her the ability to approve building height changes up to 10 feet, or to relocate and revise the size of the outpads. When you have, right now we're planning on having a site plan come in with maybe a 2,500 square foot user in this location, a 7,000 square foot user, and 8,000 over here. If the 7,000 square foot user wants to be over here, we'd like that ability to interchange those pads to react to the tenant's needs without taking away or increasing the size of the project above the maximum that's allowed. And we prefer to go back to staff, and as long as we're meeting all the parking requirements and landscaping requirements and other requirements that are in the large retail ordinance, then we don't want to have to go back to Planning Commission every time there's a change. So that's why we're asking for these conditions to be placed on the resolution and give direction back to the Planning Commission so that there's not a lot of debate at that level. We want the planning director to do her job and give us that flexibility so we can have a successful project. So with that, we're here to answer any questions and hope that you support the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McIntosh. Is there anyone who would like to speak in support, anyone else in support of staff's recommendation? See. Welcome.
Right, I'm Dennis
Please
Fox, and Mayor, members of the council staff. I live by that place, and it's an embarrassment. That place is a dog, and it has been a dog since almost about a year or so. I said, gee, would it be better? Why don't we put the new county jail there? That would be an improvement. It's anything that you put in there, I would support. And I've actually, while I was being sarcastic about it, there are people who propose putting a clinic in there, and then the supports, the Walgreens and the stuff like that, which is true. One thing I would think that really would have been mitigated, and what was left out at the beginning and killed it, was an off-ramp. There's a freeway about 50 feet from it and one off-ramp. Is why you put an off-ramp so you can get to it. Oh, we don't do that. No, you'd have to have an on-ramp to go back on it. You go down 1 mile west of it, and there's an off-ramp and no on-ramp. So it is possible, and I think that'd be great mitigation. Really would. And I applaud any people doing something to fix that mess. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in support of staff's recommendation? Seeing none, at this time, is there anyone who would like to rebut in opposition? Seeing none, is there anyone who would like to rebut in support? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and return it to council for comment and action. Councilmember Freeman.
First of all, I want to applaud the developers for taking on this project. We have blight now in this abandoned mall. So I think it'd be a wonderful thing for the community to cure the blight that is the mall right now. I did want to ask, Mr. McIntosh, did you say that the mall square footage that's approved now is being downsized, or there's just a current plan that downsizes it, or are they asking for a project approval that downsizes it?
Yes, through the mayor, Councilmember Freeman, I believe the existing square footage is around 490,000 square feet. We are asking for approval of 356,000 square feet. So yes, it is being downsized.
And that will then be the maximum size?
Yes, according to, after this resolution is approved and passed.
You can't then add another 100,000 square feet?
We would have to come back through and ask for another zone change to do that.
And mitigation. I was only wondering, do your studies, when you do something on an existing project, if it went down 20% or whatever, did they take into consideration that it's a reduction in impacts of
Yes.
traffic, a reduction in improved air quality?
Yes. All the studies are geared for the 356,000 square feet.
We now have energy standards, so it will obviously use a tenth of the energy it originally would have used. The greenhouse gases will be a tenth because of the energy codes in California. I'm just wondering if all of those reduction in impacts are part of the studies that you have already done and demonstrated.
Yes, they are.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Freeman. Councilmember Weir.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I guess we're here tonight to beautify the neighborhood. So, I am very excited to have something really nice come out of that mall, which I will admit it is a dog right now. But I met with the applicants a number of times. I have had conversations with staff over this over the last few months. I don't really have any questions on it. I will make a comment on the information you just provided to us, Mr. McIntosh. The third item is a little bit different than what I had sent to you this afternoon, but I'll leave that between you and the planning director to work out. So with that, I move approval of the resolution and first reading of the ordinance.
You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved.
Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Council and mayor statements.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mayor Go. I'll make my comments quick. I know we all share a vision for a revitalized downtown, and there are many efforts both private efforts and public efforts towards that goal. But I just wanted to share with the council that former Mayor Harvey Hall just this past year donated $80,000 towards cleaning downtown Bakersfield, and has worked with the Bakersfield Homeless Center, I believe Garden Pathways, the Downtown Business Development Corporation, to hire 2 street ambassadors that are hired to actually pick up trash, sweep streets, water trees and flowers throughout major streets in the downtown area. And I received a report of their efforts, and I wanted to share it with the council. In April of this year, the cleaning team, the ambassadors, picked up 352 bags of trash in 1 month. In May, they picked up 312 bags of trash, and in June, they picked up 343 bags of trash. So within 3 months, over 1,000 bags of trash were picked up in downtown Bakersfield. This is a positive thing for downtown. This encourages more people to come and visit downtown. I meet people from all around the world almost weekly who come and visit our downtown core. And so this is a really important service. I think we all ought to thank former Mayor Harvey Hall for making this contribution, but it certainly speaks to the need of needing to maintain our downtown core. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Gonzalez, and we thank former Mayor Hall. Also, we want to thank Cynthia Lake, who funded the initial pilot the prior year so that we could try this out, and that was very successful, and Mayor Hall picked up on that. Councilmember Parlier.
Sorry about that, snuck one in on you. I'd just like to ask staff, I believe I covered the most interchanges, freeway interchanges of any council member. I think I have 4 on the 99. I just asked staff if you could please reach out to Caltrans. Trip stuff withstanding in those project areas, but especially the Taft Highway ramp, Panama ramp, White Lane, definitely can use some work too. And that's a first impression or a last impression that people have as they come into our city or leave our city. And if Caltrans could up their game in that area, I'd sure appreciate staff reaching out to them. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Sullivan.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to mention that next Thursday, we are having our 61st celebration of our national motto. And In God We Trust, of course, is the host. We are the founding city of a movement that now has over 670 cities and counties across the country that are displaying our national motto, "In God We Trust," and 133 in California, which is very exciting. So we have a wonderful program planned. It's at the Marriott, of course, again. So call me for more information, but it's going to be a great evening, and everyone is invited. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Sullivan. Staff, thank you so much for all of your investment. I know there was a lot of preparation that went into this meeting. For those of you in the audience, thank you very much. There should be some kind of prize for you, for those of you who endured to the end. It was like National Ice Cream Day on Sunday, so too bad. But thank you all very, very much. And if there's nothing further, we stand adjourned at 9:17.